Walkman and a BMX, we both know what happens next. Before God created sex, there was just a dream, just a dream. Black and white and local news, Wrangler jeans and Jordache shoes. Twisted sister sings the blues, it was just a dream, just a dream. Who wants a hero who's obtainable? Or do we really even care? Tiny little Egyptian kings really know how to mess up things. We all want attachment without strings, but it's just a dream, just a dream. Do you want to live forever? Do you want to go get high? Do you want to burn it all down before we even try? Presidents all lie about the things we'll get. Some join wars and some forget. It was just a dream, just a dream. May all your dreams be ever wet, and all your stumbles heaven sent. It all feels like we lost a bet. It was just a dream, just a dream. Who wants a hero who's obtainable? Or do we really even care? We want a beauty that's sustainable, that's truly rare. Do you want to live forever? Do you want to go get high? Do you want to burn it all down before we even try?
Everything I wear is $3, $5 or less. This jacket is an exception. Now, I saw it, the stripes, I'm lured by stripes. It's magnetic.
You ready? Let's go get 'em.
Kazoop. I'm the chair of the Toronto Audio Engineering Society. I'm also a senior system developer senior system designer for CBC Radio, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Société Radio Canada, SRC Radio Canada. My love is audio. I'm obsessed. You know, we've hit a fantastic time in the world where we have never had a need so much more to be connected through audio technology than today. And right now we are experiencing a time like no other. We are seeing a total shift in all the paradigms that are relative to the audio industry. And the Audio Engineering Society of Toronto struggled with putting together a meeting today on, well, what was it going to be about relative to COVID alternative strategies. The Toronto Audio Engineering Society is a bunch of engineers who want to know more. So we're always looking for a way to capture and preserve some type of meeting and event, and we're doing that tonight with these recordings and these conversations that we've had. We are sponsored by some of our community supporters who are providers of technology, who are our friends, who are our trusted confidants in terms of technology. We go to these companies as broadcasters. We go to these companies as consumers. Companies go to these companies to get the best of the best from our community, and they give back to our community in order to make these events such as this one happen today. The Toronto Audio Engineering Society is a volunteer organization. I recommend that you take some time, visit torontoaes.org. Our webmaster, Earl McCluskey, is fantastically updating our information, and we are always posting our meetings, events, and showcasing members of Toronto and Toronto's audio community. We are actively involved in Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. You know, we're trying to reunite engineers socially, and right now we're all struggling with this COVID thing. We had our first meeting was this season had been arranged to be a tour of a facility, and then the second wave hit us, and we had an event cancel. And that event, you know, it affected us. It really affected how we viewed the cancellations that some of our guests are going to talk about tonight. You know, obviously we aim to empower people and disseminate some type of scientific knowledge that furthers the field of audio engineering. And when we say audio engineering, we don't just mean, you know, recording. We mean all of the above, and that is live, recorded, all of the above. We are, you know, open to any type of participant, gender neutral, gay, straight, binary, non-binary. We're here to learn through events and presentation and obviously mentorship. So please reach out to our members and our executive who are able to, you know, offer contributions to connections to the rest of the community. We're very lucky to have people involved with various facets of the organization and keeping our ties to the community as close as possible. We normally would get support through, you know, being at Ryerson University, so we thank them for offering their space, but of course in this COVID situation we cannot do that. We subscribe to services from Professional Sound, and we advertise through Professional Sound magazine, and Professional Sound has been very supportive of our events, and we do provide them content, you know, these YouTube videos, etc., and CERT, the Sheridan Insert Research Training Center. They've also provided us space in the past, and we thank them for their continued support. We're looking for academic liaisons. I'm kind of embarrassed by this slide. It's in need of work. So if you're an academic liaison that is relative to a school, we'd like to keep, we're losing connections with the academic schools. So please, if you have academic liaisonship, please reach out to us. We had a joint meeting for SIMTI in October. November, we are doing an update of the industry. So this is the state of sound. This is what we're doing, COVID alternative strategies. In December, we're trying to do Gadget Night, some new kind of cool, creative things. Santa may come and give some gift ideas. January, we're shooting for a game audio again. It was a very fantastic turnout for our game audio, and it was great to have a safe place for various corporations to come and converse on the topic. And then February, we're always looking about our hearing. We're hoping Marshall Chasen and Steve Armstrong come back and talk to us about our ears, because we're all super obsessive about our ears. Christmas is coming, folks. Give the gift of an AAS membership. AAS memberships are available to you and to yours. And just to fill out a form, if you go to the Audio Engineering Society official website, I believe it's AAS.org. Give the gift of membership. Please tell them to join and click the Toronto section as they're being their primary location, I guess it's called location. I don't know what section. It's your primary section. So I think it's great for students. Getting these emails, connecting to your peers. I use it all the time to reference standards documents for my work and for checking compatibility, etc. So tonight we've got a whole host of fantastic speakers. We've got some Canadian artists. We have some folks from the education world, from the remote world, from the broadcast world. Please enjoy the evening tonight. These videos were previously recorded. Please put your comments in the YouTube section, and they will potentially get back to you. They will be shared, these comments. So please do what you would to share the link around once the evening is over. We recommend you come back. Again, my name is Anthony. We're the Toronto Audio Engineering Society. Down there. Yeah, that one. TorontoAES.org. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy the evening, and be well. Hello? Is this Hawksley? Hawk? I got you on the line? Hello? Hey, man. It's so good to see you, my friend. Applause. Applause meter. How do you turn? Do you have a push button on your console yet to turn the applause light on yet?
The applause has an on and off switch, so it's the audience has to be decidedly on your side or against you. That's when that sign really works best.
I got a push button here, so my little light off and turn it on, and I can remotely control my microphone with a garage door opener, effectively. So
that's cool.
Stuff like that. Well, I'm excited to, it's been 8 months. What's been going on in the last 8 months here?
Well, I mean, you and I, you were very kind. It touched my heart that you visited my construction site here when I was building the studio, because you had your visiting family in the Peterborough area, and I was touched that you would drop by and say hi.
I'm from Saskatchewan. It's all about the pop-in. It's all about the pop-in.
But Peterborough is a pop-in town as well, or at least the Peterborough family I married into is a pop-in family. We bought a house, when I was talking to you last in this capacity, an official podcast capacity. I just moved from Montreal and had been living in my father-in-law's basement. As of this past May, we bought a house, and we knew that this garage that you find me in today was going to be the studio, and that this would be the first of, I don't know how many studios I've built in the years I've been doing this. In 22 years, let's say this is number, 10 or so. And this was going to be the studio where I would give no shits about the aesthetic. And what I put the attention and detail into was making sure that I built a building within a building, and that I could be sufficiently isolated from my neighbors because I live in a really populated part of the city. And even though my neighbors, it seems that they're all really excited and happy and keen on the idea of a musician living next door, that is all well and good for people until like they start hearing drums at odd hours of the night and stuff. And then it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, the charm of having a musician next door wears off pretty quick. And so it's not the prettiest room. You had already said it looks like a CBC editing room. I wanted it to be clinical and overly well lit and in a way look a little bit like my Montreal studio, which was a ghastly place as well. And like something about spaces that aren't necessarily the coolest, like vibiest places somehow like, and maybe I'm trying to outsmart my vibe here, but I feel like I'm ready. I'm sweating down to my like fight weight when I'm in a room like this, you know, like the lighting is terrible. It's, you know, kind of stuff like that.
Well, so like you're a precision drummer, you know, you're a precision programmer. You've done a lot of very high precision programming. Look at this. He's got how many kits are you down to? Like, what's your fighting weight? Speaking of fighting weight, how many kits? How many kits are you looking around? One kit. Okay. Okay.
Just that Gretsch. Now it's a huge Gretsch set. It's a massive set, but I only obviously use like the rock and roll set. I have my V drums as well, which I think I had said to you around COVID. I had a big plan to become like everybody's favorite distance drummer for hire, and given how many samples and just how many drum sounds I use on a day-to-day basis, especially for songwriting. Like, I'm not sure the general public necessarily knows they're listening to real drums or not 89.999% of the time. And like, if you want my musical ability and my musical ideas to be translated in a relatively inexpensive way, like I could play drums on your record and do 10 songs probably in about a day, quantized, and give you several different sonic, different options from my can of worms, which is to say that maybe your producer, that, you know, the client's producer has also got myriads of drum replacement samples that they like to use. I had also thought that what I would end up doing is I would use V drums, and then I would have an overhead scenario with hats. So that, because still where the sample does fall flat for me even, and I'm willing to go with like an idea being like the paramount thing, and like the sound that chooses to play the idea being like of lesser importance. Like, I've always been an ideas guy, as you know. And so I thought cymbals and hats on the electronic drums do translate still a little poorly. And I think that's just because we don't have a gargantuan hard drive to store all of the nuanced information.
Sympathetic resonances, how one cymbal, like how a stand, how come they don't sample stands? You know, like, geez Louise, and felts and all that jazz. Like, you know, like there's, you're right. There are nuances that really come into play for sure. I
feel cymbals, So I had considered, so this is part of my winter, I mean, I've got a lot of different plans for the winter because I got an empty calendar, but a lot of want to do this winter. A lot of want to do.
So usually, okay, look, you had a fantastic song hit to the top of Canadian pop charts there over the summer. You had the song of the summer, I would say, on CBC. I had nothing to do with it, but you know, it's nothing to do. I did not modify any algorithms for you, but well deserved, my friend. You know, like it to go from that to like being at home. I follow you. You've done a couple of gigs. Like, what's it like to be doing gigs now? And like, what has it been like to go from, you know, traveling, you know, to 265 to at home for, you know, we're on day 250 something today. So what's that been like for you?
Well, I have a multifaceted relationship to this idea. One, last year I toured a lot, and last year I quit drinking. So I'm 14 months sober, which meant that touring sober for the first time last year, and I did an extensive tour without any alcohol, it revealed to me that touring is actually pretty easy, and that a lot of the drama and heartache and physical like pain of touring is that you live in the din of a hangover a lot of the time, or at least I did, and I think a lot of people do, because it's sort of like becomes a common way to stay sane or to stay comfortable on the road. Anyway, so I all of a sudden was falling back in love with the road, because I could wake up early, I could grab a coffee, I could feel fantastic all day, and I had all my full power and my full energy. The companion piece is that to this is that one of the sort of my one of the trickier places for me to not drink was flying, because I have a fear of flying, which I know is ridiculous, and I know like you couldn't be afraid of anything more absurd than flying. But when I was a kid, I was
just hold it. You know, like you know, people are now afraid to shake your hand, and people are now afraid to, you know, like the fear of the fear of like me poking your face shield is a real thing. If I go to Home Depot and like you know, we're all dealing with new fears and stuff, and you know, it's a coping mechanism.
It's funny.
Right?
I haven't like pulled any of those fears into me. But I would say that not having to fly a lot this year has been really interesting. It means that I got to sort of let this dry out period, which may last for the rest of my life. I don't know. And not to keep waxing on about this. It's just that alcohol was a sort of a rather large companion narrative to this. You know, it ran alongside of me for a long time as part of my, you know, rock star thing that I did for a lot of years. And now that I'm like a sober 45-year-old guy who like is sitting at home and not on the road, like I feel comfortable. I feel grateful. I feel glad. I haven't like the mania, the COVID mania, for whatever reason. It's probably due to the fact that here in Peterborough, where we've basically been sitting for the 200 and some odd days that you've said we've been sitting here, we haven't had a big COVID explosion. There hasn't been the exposure or that mania in town here, where I think anybody I talk to from Toronto, I can see it in their face that they're feeling it. It's in a way that we just haven't here. We had 24 cases last week. We're down to 21, and that's about as high as I've seen it ever since the beginning.
Well, you know, a lot of people's families are affected by it. Obviously, you know, you don't want to be backstage, and you know, Howie Mandel was kind of right, you know, like, and I think we've all changed our attitudes about how we interact with people and how we see each other nowadays. You know, like I go into a studio, you know, we have plexiglass up at the station, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, you're at home, you're working alone, you don't take visitors, you don't take guests, private tutelages. So do you do stuff online? Like, how are you coordinating? How you're making music, you're putting music out. What are you doing?
Yeah, putting music out. Well, most of the new record was made in Montreal long before the COVID thing. I'm about to do my first co-writing session, which will be a 3-person co-write using Zoom. I haven't upgraded to any of the fast like musical sharing, like instantaneous. Everybody gets to hear music at the same time software like Jamzall, or there's a few new kind of communicative softwares that endeavor to alleviate the lag time of Zoom and these other platforms so that people can play music together. So I'm about to do a Zoom writing session in a week, and we'll see. Like, I guess even hearing you sort of speak out loud about, you know, the potentialities around like would-be socializing, and I evidently am not a social person, and that is probably somewhat revealed in the fact that through this COVID time, I don't feel a whole lot different than a regular time. I mean, I miss my brother. I would probably see my parents ever so slightly more than I currently do, but it just hasn't. A lot of the times, those years where I was on the road and was on the road for months and months and months, like, I got into a habit of coming home and then disappearing into my house and not returning until it was time to go back to the airport. So
right.
It's felt basically okay this last number of months. And I really kept myself busy. Hawksley Night in Canada was a big one. It's not that I have been shy on work. I did 5 weeks with Sheridan College doing 5-hour Zoom rehearsals 5 days a week, building almost a full moon, the stage musical. So there was a mountain of stuff to do, and it was all done on Zoom. And I must admit, I worked with an absolutely brilliant director from Edmonton named Daryl Cloran, who turned the Zoom rehearsals into something that I thought would be a 100% write-off, not worth doing, total waste of time, into, I can't believe that we got so much work done building this show, and all of the actors were in single boxes on Zoom. None of them were ever in the same room together, and it was pretty amazing.
So you're adapting, right? Like that's the whole thing about all this, is you're adapting to it in a whole new way. Like, have there been challenges for you for the internet? Like, did you have to really make a big change other than like building a studio from scratch? Like what are some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome in this time for to accomplish these things?
Well, upload download speeds we're very conscious of. Having like robust internet come out to the garage was something that, any smart person would have put a provision in while they were building. I didn't. So we run 100-foot long Ethernet cable through the house when we need, super fast uploads to the studio. I mean, I was just trying to, principle one when building the studio was, the inside, this building is not going to touch any part of my home or the rest of my building. So when the idea of drilling holes in walls or putting ABS pipe between this building and the home building to run an Ethernet cable through, I just couldn't get my head around it. There was like an insanity that took over when we were building this place. And I think when you're pouring tens of thousands of dollars into a studio build where you don't really know if all of your like room within a room precautions you're taking and all the extra expense you're taking on, there's no way to test it until the whole thing is done, right?
Yes, yeah, because it's a system. It's a system of things.
It's a system, and that, so it becomes this bizarre, like, it's like any other religion. You're following its tenets as closely as you possibly can to come across as an absolutely devout follower. But there is no proof of God or Jesus until the building is built, and then you play drums and you have a friend go outside and go, yeah, your neighbors can or can't hear it. And if I had have just made the inside of this garage into a usable space, not concerned about my neighbors, I'll bet you it would have been a third of the total cost of what it ended up doing to build a second building, to double up on 1/2-inch drywall, to use the green glue and all of the green glue products, like to just go that whole distance, like every time you go to Home Depot, like if I was just building a room, like, Jad's Man Cave or whatever,
you just take a shotgun full of like $20 bills, there's a problem. Yeah, that's it. That's building a studio to me, man. That's it.
And then I'll tell you, green glue, like, what a run-in with green glue. So it's a product that evidently sits around at Home Depots until clowns like me show up to buy it. And for anybody going into any future studio building endeavors where they want to use green glue, beyond the fact that it is a messy, messy product, and there's no scientific way that I personally have access to determine whether or not it actually is working for me or not, I will also say that I bought some old green glue tubes from a Home Depot in Coburg, I believe. And when I snipped the end, all of the green dye came out, and it was like, I got in touch with green glue and I was like, is there like a best before on this? And they're like, oh, it sounds like it's gone off. And it was one of these things when you're paying $20 a tube for this kind of stuff. It's like you were looking for some kind of like somebody in the know to go,
yeah,
don't you? And so I, out of my own hard work and diligence, found out that the green glue that I bought from Coburg was almost 10 years old. And so I had to take it back. And then I saw it go back up on the shelf and like, man, like, so, for these finicky, expensive, like only to be bought by musicians and weirdos type products, I guess I would have assumed there would have been a slight bit more focus on quality control and keeping the customer happy. Just that, when you are shelling out, I spent thousands on green.
Yeah, nothing. Well, it's it's there, so it's got to be doing something. And
I should say, I got some good, like, I had a guy following up, but nobody was willing to like jump in and go, yeah, you should use this stuff where the green dye is oozing out, or no, you shouldn't, or we can say, definitively that this will have 100% no effect, 100%, effect. There was nobody willing to go use it or don't use it. But
yeah. Well, it's hard. I've never had to take a glue company to account, but but yeah, you're right. When you're adding this stuff up and it's like, technically your studio is just floating pieces of paper with, sand in between, some kind of liquid held together by glue. And you're right. Yeah. It's thousands of dollars of liquids and glues and papers holding this thing together. I totally get it. Well, hey, it looks like you got the Soundcraft there. You got some weird insert send and returns. Tell us a little bit more about what you got going on audio wise in there.
Well, I did my first because this was I had my green screens because I shot and edited my last video for a tune called Tahiti Treat. So this room was green screens, puppets, and outfits up until last week when I cleared all the green screens out. That wall will become a green screen, a permanent green screen wall, I think, because you can never. Anybody in the 21st century who's in the entertainment or media business, you should have a green screen in your house. This is just where we're going. If you do any kind of like a podcasting or any kind of anything, green screen and a good mic, a USB mic or whatever. Like even though I'm not using a good USB mic, I'm just using the laptop mic. But anyway, last week I pulled all that stuff down and we rebuilt. Got the drums in. Got mics in, finally got to use the snake cable that you had built me. Plugged in the Soundcraft Series 200B for the first time since I bought it used from my fellow Andrew out there in St. Catharines area, who said I should clean it probably, which I should, deoxidize and stuff. But I didn't, of course. And it seems to be working fine. Phantom didn't seem to be working on Shutdown. But I mean, right out of the gate, it's a robust, I just found even the pre's on this, it just sounded the way old studios sound to me. Like, how there's, where you can feel the presence of the pre, you know what I mean? Like,
I got that, yeah, I totally do. And not in a way where I'm like, oh, it's because you're hearing noise or there's something untoward, but you feel the presence. Yes, but it's also like they had a voltage goal. They had a goal to achieve, and nowadays it's just like we have a hope. Okay, you're gonna just plug it in, hope it works. But they had like this, like people were doing math when they were hooking these systems up together, and there is definitely something to that. So you're a Logic user. You've got Apollos with that, and you got some outboard gear. I saw an 1176. What do you got going on there?
I'll be running the 1176, the stereo distressors. I have hardwired my vocal channel from the Great River into the 1176, which I feel like is what you had suggested I do a long time ago, like have a standardized signal path kind of at the ready. Yeah. And I must admit, it's a great way for me to work. And now that I have all... I feel like you built me like 11 or 12 channels of access from the desk. So what I'm going to be able to do just in terms of having things at the ready, this isn't my biggest studio by a stretch. It's going to be one of my smaller ones, but it will be this really focused, producer does all atmosphere of being able to record a lot of like live analog sounds, guitar amps. Like there's my 52 Deluxe, and I have a Roland jazz chorus under that, and I have a Prince out in the hall. I'm kind of excited about having a mic that's always dedicated to recording a guitar amp. I feel like I haven't plugged in an amp and put a mic in front of it in some years. I've my touring kit, and I've got my touring pedal board just under the table here. I don't know if you can see that. Can you? Oh,
no, yeah, I can see it now. Okay, slow down, slow. Okay, yeah, so you got a hot shot. You got a little, look at those little tiny, like slivers. What are those little slivers there in the top right? Wow.
So those are my new touring guitar amps. So the Moore Pedal Company makes these single pedal emulators, and those two Moore 900s emulate a 16 Fender Deluxe, and then the more radar pedal just to the left of each modeling pedal is an amp. Is a cabinet modeler. So you can see I've got the AC15, a single 12, and the kitty is just a sort of a hyped up AC15, a single 12. This has been my touring rig now for 2 years.
Holy, sound guys must love you. It's just like, here you go. This is it. 1, 2.
They love me, and I'm telling you, I'm also noticing with a lack of guitar amps on stage, it means my front of house guy, and we were carrying the Midas, the that everybody has,
a Pro Mix one or something, whatever it is. Yeah,
whatever that thing is, and we were all doing our own like monitor mixes on our phones, which was like unbelievable and wild and incredible. As somebody who, I owned all the equipment, and you were a big part of like keeping my old studio life alive. Like I've somewhat like jumped into this new world of believing in digital, not being an old man with his arms in the air, like shouting at a Zeus who can't be seen about how it used to be so good and now it's so terrible. Like what I notice is that my shows are now quieter but still have an impact. And I noticed that. Sorry,
quieter on stage, like stage volume you're talking?
No, I'm talking front of house volume. That the balance, that the mixer can seek to create an album-like balance when amps are not on the stage anymore. Like all of a sudden, one of your loudest and sort of most infringious members of the stage population no longer exists. Everybody looks at the drummer as the loudest guy on stage, but you.
No, I totally get that. But, as a drummer, you have dynamics and, like the shields, they look like, they've got like a bad rap, like a retainer. It's like, a singer singing with a retainer and braces on kind of thing. And so, but okay, so you got the guitar volume. And right now, like, have you toured during COVID? Have you done any shows? You know? Tell me, what were those like? How did those go? And what did you learn from them? And what do you think the shows of the future are going to look like?
Oh, man. Well, so I did what they called a drive-in. I played in Sudbury. It was an outdoor show that broadcast an FM signal so that you could sit in your car and watch, but there was no video screen. Then I played an actual true-to-life drive-in just north of Toronto with extraordinary camera production and massive screen and beautiful FM broadcast sound. I played another outdoor show in a parking lot at a well-respected sort of folk venue just outside of Ottawa called Neat Cafe. All of these gigs were all sold out. The desire that people have to get out and see and hear and be involved in live music seems to not have gone away during COVID. But I did one indoor show in Elmont, Ontario, in the Elmont Town Hall, and it was extreme social distancing. So in a hall that I've sold out before, probably carries 400 people, there was just under 50. And
did Ken Friesen come? Did Ken Friesen come?
Ken Friesen came. We had a big chat. I love Ken Friesen.
I miss Ken. Well, we got Doug McClement who might be on this show. So Doug and Ken we'll talk about Ken Friesen another with Doug.
Yeah, it was great to see Ken actually. Ken's been a big part of. He's involved. Well, I think he's like one of the main techs at the new El Mocambo. So some interesting behind the scenes. Like they've blown up their tech thing there, and like. They're looking into the future going, will live venues also need to be broadcast venues? Which is in some ways, that was my immediate pivot at the beginning of COVID, which is why we developed the Hawksley Night in Canada show, which is why I was on texting, emailing with you one morning early going like, what do you know about camera switchers? What do you know about cameras? What do you know about this stuff? So
yeah, I gotta be careful. I can't give you advice. So we can talk about AES standards and how your Soundcraft console hooks up. But I love the CBC. Gives me a short leash in terms of system design. That's for sure. But if you want to talk about
any of that, Just to be clear, because I don't want to be running afoul of this of the CBC dogmas around these things. But
No. We've been friends for a long time. So, any friend that calls me and says, hey, I have a 24-hour support line. If you're in an audio disagreement 24 hours a day, and you got two guys sitting in a room 24 hours a day, can't agree on something, you just call me. I'll answer the question. 48K.
I feel bad in a way that I mean, it's funny. I needed a bit of, I had some serious questions yesterday, and I was on with Stu Crooks who's now living in Paris, France. And you and Stu particular, like, are these magical humans with a lot of intrinsic know-how and just pure good old fashioned, let's take it apart kind of guts. And anyway,
oh, cheers.
I think
Thank you.
COVID was a really interesting time to check to just see if there was resilience in you to pivot sufficiently to find something good in what felt like just one big fat shit sandwich, and for me, like, learning cameras, learning the camera switcher, learning OBS.
If there is a
doing
shit
video
sandwich,
at all,
is the shit sandwich is video. Like audio is hard, and people like harp on audio, and it is super hard to do these conversations and dialogue and Zoom. But video is a shit sandwich too. Sorry, video. I love video.
Yeah, no, we all love video, and video is the future. Like, we all know that, like, music doesn't mean as much to us now in the time of like episodic television. Like, it's no longer top of the heap in terms of how people spend their entertainment dollar. Like, we are a visual people. I mean, as soon as like the bottom really started to, for me, when I could feel the bottom dropping out of the music business, and I realized pretty quickly that I was going to have to learn how to make my own damn videos. And so 3 years ago, I bought a version of Final Cut Pro and started to figure it out. I've been doing a lot more video editing, like a lot more. Like the other day when I started into this project, I needed to kind of do an updated version of an old song of mine, because it turns out my record, Lover Fighter, went gold. Hello. So nice. Thank you. And what was I saying? Yeah. So I had to go and re-record a tune as a kind of like an homage to the record, and content. And I went over to Logic after literally weeks and weeks and weeks of editing on Final Cut, and it was like I was getting my sea legs. It was an incredible, like, bizarre, bumpy transition back to my old software. Software I feel like I've had a certain intimacy with since the early 2000s.
So yeah, do you find that the missing of the cohesion of video and audio really isn't there? Like, there's no like 4-track video recorder that records into Logic simultaneously, and I know these tools exist. That there's the video post production, and then there's the audio post production. But what you're saying is like they're even though they're the same company and they have like the same kind of timeline and same kind of feel, they're not the same content creation software anymore.
No, they're not. And that's probably because in their separate fields, like, they've become deeper and deeper and more nuanced and more powerful and can do more stuff and have evolved so greatly over the years that, they've been going in their own directions. There are moments where it's like, wouldn't it be nice? And maybe I just haven't gone deep in the audio part of Final Cut. There's been times where it's like, I need to like edit a vocal, literally, that I'm like working on just something somebody's spoken, and it's like, it's just kind of the vocal, like the recording's dodgy, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to draw in some volume levels and just kind of neaten things up, and I just dump audio into Logic. I'm sure there's an audio area with some treats and tricks in Final Cut. It's just whereas again, like, I think a guy like you, like, it's funny what's revealed. I've had to work and live outside of my comfort zone, becoming technically minded. It's not my natural state, but I feel it's a place of power. And I'm so excited that I didn't just sit around and complain online about, now I got to learn how to do the computer. And I
learn how to use Zoom. Zoom is so hard.
Yeah, like whereas like, you know, middle-aged people like me need a challenge. Like we need to be thrown out of our comfort zone because it's the only way that a brain like mine is going to stay nimble. And I've loved going deep into Final Cut. I've learned a lot. It's a powerful skill that I use in my own music career every week without fail.
Well,
every week without.
Hey, I'm super excited to hear that. You know, I want to be mindful of your time. I appreciate you taking the time to chat about this. You know, I love your technology. I love seeing, you know, you're median aged man, that's the median age, and it was a good math joke, and I like that, you know, and for me, you know, when I saw that record title, it's like, okay, you know, like we're going someplace with this, and you know, thank you so very much for sharing your time, and I look forward to, you know, watching where the next iteration of this goes. We'll see if we'll check in at another time, sir.
Anthony, like I have a lot of time for you. I think you're a special human being. I think you're a special human being, and you have gone out of your way to be helpful to me so many times. You're you know, when I was younger, I was very like tuned into like exceptional humans. And I had this thought, like, because you haven't met a lot of people when you're young, and when you do come across exceptional people, you get excited. And somebody like me who gets excited about exceptional people, you meet one. And when I was younger, I would have said, man, exceptional people, they've got to be like 1 in 100. And then you live 10 more years and you go, oh, no, got to be more like 1 in 1,000. Then you live 10 more years. It's like, no, definitely closer to 1 in 100,000. And like, the longer you live, the more you realize exceptional people are like, they're quite rare. And you're one of them. And I'm just like more beyond pleased that I get to know you. So
hey, cheers.
Talk.
You know,
I know.
No. You know, and it's mutual. You know, I've said multiple times that, you know, you're Canadian rock. You know, you're a treasure, a national treasure, and you know, and you're not done yet. And you know, like you know, there's you're on record 20 something, and you know, it's like you say, you can do it cheaper now and better, and to be where you're at, and it's just getting better, and to inspire you or to play a small part of it, I appreciate it. So I got to stop the recording. I thank you so very much, Hockey. You be well, and we'll chat here. I appreciate it. So you take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending the Toronto Audio Engineering Society's presentation. For more information, go to torontoaes.org. The Toronto AES is sponsored by Solotech, Gear Audio, Sonotechnique, Bell Media, YSL, Electrosonics, BRTB, Global USS, Adamson, Lawo, and avshop.ca. The Toronto AES is available at the Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. We also have Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Should we introduce this? What I could do, which would probably just embarrass you, is I could go to All Music and read all of your credits, but then that would take us for the rest of the morning. So, so I pulled some highlights out. You know, the obvious ones, because you won 2 Juno Recording Engineer of the Years, Molly Johnson, and most recently, that was Monkey House, which has been released, and Alex Cuba. Both of those have been released. Yeah. And we've got. I created a playlist, I'm proud to say, and it has followers. There's people that are actually following my playlist of John Beetle Bailey.
Oh, geez.
It's amazing. It's how Spotify works. We hate Spotify. We revile it because, you know, the individual who's running it is obviously not sympathetic to the needs of musicians, financial needs, but nevertheless he has a fine product, and when you engage it, then it does bring profile. We may be starving from the profile or starving for the exposure, as Ayancey says, but I don't know.
Spotify recently did a thing where they're offering artists a deal where you can take a lower royalty in exchange for more exposure. Like, is that not a slap in the face of an already terrible? Look, you're getting a check in the mail for 17 cents, and they're saying, well, you know, if you you agree to like us sending you only 12 cents, we'll give you more exposure.
Okay. Or I think it might have been you that posted the comment, and I've forgotten the gentleman. I'm going to call him a gentleman's name. This is public forum. The nice person who runs Spotify, who claimed that musicians should basically get off their butts and produce more albums.
Release more content.
Yeah. More often. Yeah. Okay. So is he going to fund that? I didn't see any offer of coming in and providing us with any kind of cash or no. So anyhow, but we laugh. But and you've got two albums, which one is I've been waiting to see sort of an official release, which is the Salt and the String Refugee,
it's out. Yeah, it actually did get released in March, I believe.
Is it official? Because I thought I had understanding they were holding back and waiting.
Well, there was talk about holding it back, but I think the machinery and the sort of release date and all that stuff was already in progress, and there was about a 24-hour period where Chris could have decided to pull the release, and at that point it was all the stuff. Everybody's having to scramble and kind of figure out what to do. Certainly. For me, I think everybody was sort of affected by this in some way. Like when everything just kind of shut down, a lot of us were sitting there, just absolutely dumbstruck, and all of our work was pretty much canceled. And, like everybody else, I was sitting there for probably 3.5 months with just a trickle of stuff going on. I'm generally not one of those kind of like go-to mix guys where I'm just mixing. I do, obviously I get some projects where I'm just mixing, but most of the time I'm involved kind of from beginning to end. And so if I stop recording stuff, I run out of work, and that's very troubling, but I think fortunately after about 3 or 4 months, I think a lot of artists and labels decided that they didn't want to slip away into obscurity. So they kind of decided to kind of just get back at it again. And then the flip side of that is that, any of us that have grown up in a kind of a carny household where you're living on a freelancer kind of situation, I said yes to everything and then put myself in a situation where I'm going crazy to try to finish everything, and people yelling at me, and that's been kind of difficult to manage. The thing is that for me, I don't have a hierarchy of like prioritizing one project over another. They're all important to me, and I kind of have to, I think maybe a lot of people can relate to this, that while this whole pandemic thing has been going on, and especially in the first few months, I found it very, very difficult to get the front wheels over the speed bump and get I'm not even going to say motivated. It's kind of like I find that like I have to dive into a project and I have to believe that we're building the Taj Mahal. You know what I mean? Like I have to believe that we are making the most incredible thing ever. And I have to drink that Kool-Aid for the entire time I'm working on it. But getting over the hump and getting it started, getting in, was very difficult. I can't even describe it. I think it's the sort of, it's like every creative person kind of became a bit more ADHD. Great things about, if we can find any kind of silver linings in this whole pandemic thing, it is the fact that now all of a sudden, with all of the artists sitting at home without live performance revenue, there's a big bright light shining on the recording industry aspect of their careers. And they're all starting to ask why they're not making any money from their catalogs.
Right.
And, legislation is now having to finally catch up to that, but also has some teeth where, it would not be taken seriously maybe a year or two ago, but now I think the major ISPs and the kind of major tech organizations like Amazon, Google, Facebook, they have basically treated the entertainment industry as a lost leader to kind of create content for their services. And we have been sort of consumed in the process. And the way that the income inequality sort of graph, if you look at the way that the runaway wealth of the 1% and the 1% of the 1% has sort of spiked beyond belief, that's mirrored in the entertainment business. I think like it at any given time, there's about 8 records that are making 95% of the revenue in the recording industry. So the rest of us, including the entire recorded history of humanity, are fighting over 5% of the remaining revenue after Drake and The Weeknd and Bieber and Mendes and Alessia Cara and Taylor Swift and Adele. Once they're done with the lion's share of the revenue, we're trying to claim back 5%. I mean, I certainly in the studio side of things, once the studios were allowed to open again, I have to commend, like the staff, like at Revolution and at Noble Street, 2 of the studios that I've been doing some recording sessions at, like the lengths that they are having to go to in order to, number one, just comply with the protocols, and number 2, make us all feel like we're safe. I'm putting my family at risk when I enter the door. I need to feel comfortable that they are taking all the precautions. And I have to tell you, they are going above and beyond. Yeah. Like at many studios, taking your temperature when you enter, filling out the COVID screening form, hand sanitizer, very, very strict about what rooms we're in, what surfaces we touch, and then, going over the room with a UV afterwards, air filtration, obviously masks, all the sorts of things, and then sequestering microphones. Generally microphones that are used for brass and woodwinds or vocals are sequestered for 72 hours before the session and after, of course. Right. That kind of thing. And, so I did an orchestra session at Noble Street for Mike Jansen's record, and that was awesome. Number one, great to be doing a string session. Obviously a string session is sort of uniquely equipped to be able to work with masks and not have to be, blowing into a horn. But then we did a Phil Nimmons tribute record over at Revolution, and so I kind of set up the baffles in a sort of, if you look at the top, in a sort of an asterisk formation, which is actually my kind of go-to anyways. I like doing that. 5 horns on the floor, keeping everybody safe and separate, and running the filter, the air system in the studio, the fan full time, fresh filters, all that kind of stuff. Like, I really have to give it to the studios have gone above and beyond to just keep us working, and like I said, if we stop recording, I run out of work, so I'm eternally grateful for the work that the studios have done. But I kind of feel like we're sort of uniquely equipped on the recording industry side that we can continue to do some level of work. But, the live side of the business, which used to be a no-brainer in terms of, people making a decent income, regular work, lots of activity, completely stopped. As tough as it has been in the recording side of things, that is really hard. And I wish I had some suggestions for that, but I'm very hopeful that, we're very close to being able to start ramping that up again. But I mean,
some artists have actually surprisingly have segued into that. Western Swing Authority is an example. Now the full band hasn't done that, although conceivably they could. But it would take a fair amount for them to do that. But Shane and Stacey Goosey have a Friday night regular show,
and it's great. Yeah, it's really great.
Well, they end up with 1,000 viewers, and everybody's putting money into their tip jar. And
I think one of the things about the live streaming thing, which I think especially early on, artists, on the sort of acoustic music side of things, folk artists, any kind of singer-songwriter performer that's self-sufficient had a huge advantage over any kind of ensemble or kind of instrumental group that, requires 4 or 5 people or more to be together. So, in the early goings, I mean, certainly like Dana Manning has, kept going with her regular performances and stuff. And somebody like that who is just a real spark plug firecracker of a performer, really great singer, guitar player, is uniquely equipped to be able to perform into a mobile phone with one microphone and sound incredible and authentic and great. And that's awesome. But, the kind of stuff where you need to put an ensemble together, it's very difficult. So Chris McCool from Sultans of String, he basically, I think that they started out initially doing some live streams from their living room, and I think Catherine got tired of that, so she kicked him out and sent him to the garage. So I ended up managed to connect the dots, and Bob Breen went out there and ran a bunch of Cat 6 lines out to the garage. So Chris has completely converted the garage into sort of a broadcasting space with distancing and cameras and. Maybe people haven't seen it yet, but we've been sort of messaging back and forth and talking and FaceTiming and stuff and giving him advice and stuff on, he's built a little bit of it's not like a true ISO booth in the sense of a recording studio, but it's a sort of a leaky ISO booth with, like he did install a fan above the band that sucks the air out of the room from the top and vents it outside. Right. So that there's always fresh air and any kind of, atomized stuff is exiting the room from the top. So he put another vent and built another sort of little vocal space with a kind of a leaky ISO booth that, so you start the fan and it's drawing air in from underneath the door and between the windows and up and out so that they can have a singer join them safely to do some live streams. So that I think will be coming up very shortly.
I watched their last webcast. His production values were unbelievable.
Yes.
I was so impressed because I know how difficult it is to manage all that. I know he's got his Bluetooth pedal in front of him so he can control his cameras, but keeping that in his mind and then inviting a flamenco dance singer to join in. I assume it was by Zoom or
by Zoom. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
We should wrap this up because we've got more material than I'm sure we're going to be. Edit this together, I'm sure.
I would just comment and say, like one of the questions that Anthony sent me was, what are you kind of doing to spark joy or sort of, that kind of thing. I would say that for me, like the thing I've been working on actually, and the reason I won't be able to join you guys until I might be able to get in on the end of the meeting, but we're doing a kind of a taping for a local theater company here in New Hamburg, the Community Players. So we're making a Christmas program, all very, very COVID safe. We've taken incredible precautions with everybody, face shields, masks. We've got this giant construction box fan to vent out the room between each one at a time performer that comes in. And so we've been pre-taping a bunch of stuff that'll be their Christmas program, and that has been really great. And we've also been doing a choral music thing with our church at Wolpert Mennonite. We're recording all the singers one at a time, and it's just for me, those are things that aren't going to make any money, but I have to do it for my sanity to feel like me personally, I want to be able to look back in a few years at this time and know that we did something, that we didn't just lay down and in a ball and do nothing. So for me, that's more important than the financial side of it. If I can just survive, if we can all just be alive at the end of this, that's the thing. I just want everybody to be alive. No material possessions matter at all. This is all just, let's just try and be alive, That's a fine closing statement, John. Thanks very much for this. Yeah, all good. And great.
Keep it going. All right.
You bet. Okay.
Thank you for attending the Toronto Audio Engineering Society's presentation. For more information, go to torontoaes.org. The Toronto AES is sponsored by Solotech, Gear Audio, Sonotechnique, Bell Media, YSL, Electrosonics, BRTB, Global USS, Adamson, Lawo, and avshop.ca. The Toronto AES is available at the Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. We also have Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts. Enjoy the rest of the show. Hello, Jeff. Jeff, are we there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. The hardest part of audio, it's getting these audio connections working. Cheers. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Happy to hear you.
Well, last time we chatted, it was Passover, and then now we're into the Christmas Hanukkah season. You started a school year like no other school year at the University of Toronto. You've overcome problems that you didn't even know existed, and we're excited to have you here, Jeff. We're really excited to have you here, Jeff.
Well, it's cool to be here, man.
So
all right.
What has changed in the last 8 months? We're at day 200 plus here. What has changed in the last 8 months here for audio and education and audio as we know it?
Right. Well, there's been a lot going on, and there's been a lot of very quick pivoting from one angle to another. So as you can imagine, the university is a big organization. There are 50,000 students at the University of Toronto. There's about 80,000 people total, most of them on the downtown campus. And when this whole situation started, they started doing what large organizations do. They made committees. And they started reaching out to anybody who knew anything about communicating at a distance or sound or anything like that. So you can imagine it got corralled into a number of committees. Nice. Pretty interesting, really.
Yes, I imagine.
And yeah, pretty interesting just to see the structure and how they work. And they're really good at it. I mean, it's a big organization, but it's a good employer. Now, to be fair, I'm not a full-time employee. I'm an adjunct professor. Which is a funny position in Canada. It's an appointed position, so it's not competitive in the sense that it's also not unionized or anything like that. Everything I do is a negotiation at the university, but we have a good relationship, and they're allowed to bring in an adjunct when they don't have anybody who can cover something, but they are not looking for a full-time professor, but also it's too specialized a category in a way.
Yeah.
So
you have skills, Jeff. You got skills. So,
very particular as it turns out.
Yeah, I have to agree. And the audio world has looked for these highly skilled people, and to teach it is and to be taught by somebody who has the skills such as you. It's an honor, and that's exciting. That's very good. So what did these committees discuss? What was the goal of these committees, as all committees should have a goal?
Yeah. So let's put it in the context of the music faculty. So here you have a situation where it's a practical craft and a practical art. It depends on people playing together, and its arguably its most important method of teaching is Socratic to a fault. In other words, it's one-on-one, really. Right down to it, and that sort of. And all of a sudden, we're breaking that apart, right? We cannot. How do you have a class in orchestra when you can't put enough people in the same space, right?
How do you examine the intimacies of reed techniques relative to this reed and the harmonics and the details and the nuances that you see in a one-to-one program? Yeah.
Or even just how do you improvise and react to what's going on when the latency is too large? Like it's just not. It doesn't really work.
Even our conversation here. Even our conversation. I step on you. You step on me, and it is not organic. Yeah. It's not even for us as humans that we can think that there's a delay. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I see that. That's
right. And when you're talking about ensemble, of course, then we already know that at the moment, by and large, that doesn't work. That you cannot play together at a distance effectively. There's some things you can do, but you can't do high precision work. Like no Earth, Wind and Fire funk bands spread across the internet, basically.
Unless they're all tied to MIDI, unless they're all playing to the same click track or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right, or something like that. So,
but in an orchestra, like you say, like there is no ensemble work is a very fluid conductor-performer relationship as well.
Yep.
Do you lose that? How are you trying to regain some of that?
Right. So it comes down to understanding what we can do. First you have to do an audit of all the spaces you have and get somebody to tell you how many people can you put in this space, and it has to do with the volume of the space, but almost more importantly, it has to do with the ventilation rate and the rate of exchange of the air volume that's going on in that time. So
finally, somebody's like recording studios. This is it's either too hot, too cold, or the air's not moving it well enough. So yes, of course, you go to the studio designers.
So let me give you a practical tip. The original electronic music studio at the University. Well, it's not really the original. The original was in 1959, but the one that had been there since at least the 70s. Is in the third sub basement below. So the Edward Johnson building is 3 floors up. It's also 3 floors below.
The super secret. You're talking about the classic, like super secret 3-story below U of T music lab. This is the infamous classic. Like they're when you look up synthesizer in certain Encyclopedia Britannica, this is the place. This is the place.
This is the place. That's absolutely the place. And I started my relationship with that place when a fellow named Paul Pedersen was the dean of the Faculty of Music. Now, I knew Paul from McGill, and he was the dean when I went to McGill, and then he became the dean at U of T. And he taught a course in recording in the electronic music studio. And 1 year, I guess 5 years after he came or whatever, he went on sabbatical. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, Jeff, would you teach the course for me?" So I went in, and every time I walked into the space, I get super nervous, and it wasn't, butterflies in my stomach. It was just anxiety, and I couldn't figure it out, and I hated going there. And so I taught that year, and I didn't really do much there again until this recent involvement, where I was visiting the space again, especially as we were talking about renovating and stuff like that. And finally, they did as part of the renovation, the preparation for the renovation, there was an audit of the air conditioning that was going on. And they said, "Hey, there's only about 48% of the oxygen here that should be here." and now I knew why I was so anxious every time I was there. And and so they so that would be a problem in this case. Now we have our own ventilation in the EMS, and we are the envy of the faculty because we have our own completely HEPA filtered separate system that is zoned out across the 4 spaces that we have, and now it's a big deal. But so what they did is they came in, they did an audit of all the spaces, they did up the filter technology that was there, and the volume of air was increased, so they increased the fan speeds and stuff like that. And then they told us how many people we could have in a space. So it's still not enough for orchestra. Now we have several large spaces. There's one of the reasons there's 3 floors below is there's actually 2 concert halls kind of stacked on top of each other. There's the Walter Hall, which is on the, you enter from the 2nd sub-basement, and then it breaks downwards to the 3rd sub-basement. And then there's McClement Theater, which is the doppelganger of the stage at, what's it called now? Sony Center, St. Lawrence Center, something center, the one at front end.
Right downtown. So it's like physically the same footprint, or is it designed to be staging of physically same footprint? Okay. That's a big stage.
Yeah, it's not just the stage part. And what that was done for is that the opera used to perform at the whatever center it is, and they would rehearse at McClement Theater. So they made the stages exactly the same. In fact, the workshop is at the McClement Theater, and which is why the McClement Theater at the University of Toronto is an IATSE hall. And that would be where they build the sets and do all the rehearsals. Then they move everything down and do the performances. This is before they had the Four Seasons or anything like that. And So but it's a full size stage and about I don't know, maybe 900 seat theater, 700 seat. I can't quite remember. So we have some large spaces around, and what the crew did at Macmillan and stuff is that they built lucite rolling baffles, and we
so
now
like
have
lucite,
so
like you
when
mean
they set up the orchestra,
like clear baffles. Or what's a lucite or plexiglass?
Clear, exactly.
Okay.
They're plexiglass, lucite.
Okay, no. So, okay.
So they built plexiglass baffles in really nice rolling frames. I actually got them to make a couple for our electronic music studio. And they have a system of these, and they put them in between all the players. But still, you're talking maybe you can put 18, 20 people on a stage or something that by the time you're done with physical distancing.
You and I, we've recorded orchestras. We've done that type of work before. You put up a gobo or a baffle or something like that. Boom, the acoustics change again. All of it. You have the light, the sun. A wall that is transparent is not acoustically transparent, though the mind thinks it is. So as somebody who's sat in these theaters, what has the experience been for the players who are now performing through Lexan, which is visually transparent but not acoustically transparent? All
right, so we've had some stuff. So first thing is to remember is that the plexiglass is set beside people, but not in front of them. Right? That technically it's only the conductor who needs something in front of them. As long as you put these side baffles, you make basically, stalls, as it were, for everybody to be in. And so because what you're trying to do is stop any transmission of airborne particles up to a point. So the other thing is there's been some science on this. And of course, there isn't very much travel from musical instruments in terms of the velocity of air. You think there is, but there isn't, as it turns out. Even with singers, at about 1 meter to 1.5 meters, there's no more velocity, right? Because if there was high velocity, think about it, they'd be wasting all the energy moving the air and not making the sound.
Yes, and also microphone capsules would expire at a rate much quicker than So we've known for a long time that the air isn't necessarily humid, or the particles of the voice aren't necessarily as humid as a sneeze or something.
So these precautions, are over and above the 6 foot or 2 meter distance that's being used. And mostly it comes down to the volume of air and the number of exchanges per hour of the air volume and how many people you're putting in the same space. Not so much, once they're spaced out, nobody's too freaked out about the kind of divisions. Now, I have been in another situation. I did some work with the Mendelssohn Choir recently, and we were at a venue, 918 Bathurst, which is fairly large, and they had put up a system of shower curtains on like light stands that were in between the singers, and they did want to put something in front of everybody, at which point I had to point out that nobody would be able to see the conductor, and there was really no point to me being there to record them. So we didn't do that, but and it worked out very well. So in a lot of these situations where we're recording, of course, we're doing it in tiers. Right. So we're setting up a monitor system.
Okay. Yeah. So you do tiers. When you say tiers, like, are you talking like you're separating these people as much as possible, or you're, sorry, I interrupted. Tiers.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah. And I've switched horses a little bit, but to get the recording done, let's say with the Mendelssohn Choir, we'll do the core group, which is about 18 or 20 large. It'll be, a mixed choir, so there'll be sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses, and then the next tier will be all the rest of the sopranos, because the Mendelssohn Choir is about 100 people or so. There's a core of 20 pros, and the rest is community based, and then we'll start bringing in the community in unified groups, so all the sopranos. It will be the next tier, and then the next tier after that, all the altos, so on and so forth, and then we put it all together, and before you know, it sounds like the choir.
It's a big thing, yeah.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a big thing. And Look, we've been doing other stuff. We did just for the convocation. So here's what a disappointment for the kids. I really feel for them.
Oh, yeah.
Who have to convocate, right? It's a virtual convocation. So they asked us to do a version of O Canada. We did it with a core group of 5 string players and a conductor, whom we recorded and videoed in Walter Hall. So that's only 6 people in the hall. So we could all spaced out nicely. And then we sent that recording with the video of the conductor and so on and so forth to every member of the U of T orchestra and had them play their parts at home, recording with whatever equipment they have. We did procure about 600 kind of USB mics and little recorders and stuff like that so that people could get some equipment. We sort of, made a deal and bought a whole bunch of stuff and sold it to the students at cost.
Wow.
And the professors and stuff like that, just to make sure that people would have some kind of quality audio stuff.
That's amazing.
Okay. So we did that.
Amazing.
We did O Canada. It came out great. Everybody's very impressed. There's a really cute video that they cut together where you see the appropriate instruments playing at the appropriate time. It's quite a nice little piece, and it's an arrangement of O Canada. It's all
so I have
nice.
to ask. When you do the synchronization of so many people, how do you ultimately provide bars and tone, a countdown? Do you get them how do you synchronize so many things simultaneously to maintain the feel and groove of something like that?
I'll tell you how. We do this. We get the conductor to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then they start playing. And then we get everybody, when they do their little video for us, to clap in the same place. Right? And so we create a slate.
The hand clap, all this technology. Yeah. We got computers, got time code, LTC time code. We got this, what are we going to do? I got it. Hand clap.
Here's the thing. Remember, basically, a lot of people are using 2 cell phones to do this, or a cell phone and their laptop. They're listening to and watching the conductor on the cell phone or on their laptop, and they're recording themselves on their cell phone with the camera.
Yeah. So we've entered the multi-screen universe now. Everybody's got 2 cell phones. Everybody, I'm looking at 5 computer monitors right now. Yep. The future of teaching is multi-screened, et cetera. Okay, so once we have a vaccine, Jeff, what does it slowly start becoming again, or have we entered this in a more permanent sort of way, and what kind of things, of all the things that you've mentioned today, what's going to stay permanent?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of discussion about this. So some people, this isn't news. This has been around the sort of AES and teaching and stuff like that. John Storick said this to me a little while ago. So he feels that doing his stuff online is better, and he likes it because he feels he's got a more personal relationship with the students, and that they get more one-on-one time. And I understand that. And anything. The other people who are finding that are the people who teach computer applications in music and stuff like that, or Max MSP, or the video guys and stuff like that. They're all finding to some extent that, especially if you're doing something on your computer, it's almost better to do it as an online class because people can just do it along with you and you can see the results and blah, blah, and all this sort of stuff. So that's all fine. My problem is I teach sound recording. And I have distilled my method of instruction to analog. In other words, while I use Pro Tools in my classes, and I insist, I'm one of the only people who actually, well, except for the Max MSP guy, who insist, well, that's not true, the video, audio for video game guys to have very specific software. But I insist on using Pro Tools, not because I think it's better than the others, simply because I need to standardize one way of doing something, and we have to build the studios and make them operate, especially the sort of sound recording part. I don't need the headache. But so I don't really teach much Pro Tools. I actually leave that to 2 LinkedIn courses that are part of the, we have a LinkedIn Learning account at the U of T that everybody gets, and I have them take Pro Tools 101 and Pro Tools 110 because I can't be bothered to teach them, how to make Pro Tools work. beyond at least at the perfunctory level.
I get that.
I figure they need to know that. Okay,
it's kind of like a word processor. It's like a word processor. You take the Microsoft course. You go take the Avid course and come right back.
That's right. That's right. And that's something that they need. It's part of my course. But I teach everything else pretty much on analog equipment, and part of the reason is to equalize the situation. Because, with a plethora of plugins and so on and so forth, it's impossible to, unless I really restrict what we use. And the other thing is we have everything. We have this tremendous amount of equipment. Everybody wants to play with the real toy. And why play with the picture of the toy when you can play with the real thing, right? So it also, like I said, it generalizes the application, because a console is a console is a console. But, But Ableton Live doesn't really work the same way that Cubase works, where they all screw with the paradigm, but at least a physical piece of equipment tends to standardize that, and you can see where all the other stuff came from. So I think at the level we're at the university, at a graduate level, we really need to have some understanding of the physics of how the thing works. And then it's quite easy for them to extrapolate to the representational, if you see what I mean. And so that's how I teach, which is screwed when you can't be in the lab at the same time. This is how this works.
I get that. You've got you can't teach hands-on. If you can't touch it, if you can't see it, if you can't smell it, I totally get it.
That's right. So what we've done is the regulations are such that labs are allowed to stay open, and the electronic music studio is classified as a lab, and I'm allowed to give courses, but I can have a maximum of 4 people. And my courses this year, so normally I'd have 2 classes of 7 for my first year recording, because I keep it to 7 people per class, because we do in-class recordings, and I can't give enough theory and do enough practice if I have more than 7 people. I only have 12 classes a semester, right? So I can do 5 classes of showing them how to do stuff and 7 classes of doing stuff, basically. But this year, because 6 out of my 14 students were foreign students who couldn't make it into the country, I only have 8 students, so I'm doing 4 and 4. So I'm within my legal limit there. My other class that I give, I give 2, in a year, I give 2 mandatory courses and 2 electives, and 2 sections of my mandatory courses. So I end up teaching 3 times a week. And the electives tend to have a greater number of people, also because we're not like doing ensemble recording with musicians and stuff in class in those ones. It's mostly control rooms based, so I can have more people, if you know what I mean. And I don't have to have as much room for other people. And I have 12, and that's a problem. So I spoke to my class and I said, well, we could do this whole thing online. It would suck, but I can, because I can just do it in Pro Tools or whatever, and that's fine. Just restrict the stuff that I'm using. The elective this semester is a mixing and production. It's what it's about. Next semester, it's all about immersive audio. And the method is, speaking to the class, they really wanted to come in. So what we do is we have 4 in class and 8 online, and we rotate the 4 every week. Is another group of 4 coming through. So it's a little hectic.
It's hectic, but it seems like you're getting, well, like you say, the smaller class size, you get a little bit more hands-on, right? You only have 8 hands in a room instead of 7. Right. And, and it's safer for you too. You got to remember, like, there's a pandemic out there. Yeah.
Man, I'm no youngster anymore, as it turns out.
So what is the school doing to protect you, as other than, plexiglass Lexan between people and cutting the groups down? And so are you taking COVID tests? Are your students taking COVID tests? You're forcing yourselves to go in this 48% less, air circulated type of room. Well, that's been upgraded.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, man, we have 200%. We're good. We're good. We have great air.
So did it change the sound? Does it now rumble? Do you guys have to deal with a rumble that's new? It's like, God.
We don't have a rumble, but we do have we do have a noise in the EMS in one of the rooms, which turns out to be a vibration from the aged rather large hydro transformer that's attached to our building. We did shut it off. One time we had hydro shut down the transformer so we could see where the noise was, and that's as far as we've gotten with it. We did locate it, but as far as we got. So there is a bit of residual noise. It's not terribly noticeable unless you're looking for it. And I just, you know what I do? It's what I do with the soundtrack problems. I always thought I was working on a movie and there was a soundtrack problem that I couldn't get rid of, I'd just lay a cough over it, and somebody would think it was in the theater. It's no problem. You know? That's what I do. I just kind of talk over it.
I get it. So are you being tested? Do your students have to be tested? Are we soon going to walk around with badges?
So we don't. The school has been quite good in some aspects. Like they have thrown money at this problem. I will say, people. Somebody said to me, "Gee, isn't the school pissed off? They don't get the foreign students who pay that much. They must be worried about the money." And there's not even a hint. I mean, it's not endless funds, but whatever it takes, they're willing to do. Like, we've been re-equipping a bunch of other classrooms for remote learning, and spending quite a bit of money on equipment to get them up to stuff. Because you can do it. You can do a bunch of stuff through Zoom, but as you know, with Zoom, this is the same that we're doing here. They're very voice optimized. If you play an instrument who has a fundamental below 120 hertz.
Tuba lessons. I feel bad for the tuba players. It's like, exactly. I can't hear you, man. All I hear is it's just cutting out. It's just cutting out.
That's right. and a whole bunch of stuff. So, we've invested in a lot of tech that way. There's a lot of microphones around. There's actually a constant tech group of students who've been employed to help the teachers with tech during lessons. So if anything goes bad, there's a phone number they call and somebody shows up and resets their system for them and stuff like that. So all that stuff's being done.
So with but
here's the thing. So
okay,
yeah.
Right,
I was just going to say the safety measures are such that we have a great deal of hand sanitizer and rubber gloves and all that sort of stuff around. That we have a protocol for coming into the EMS. We have a protocol for working in the EMS, but there is a certain amount of risk. There's no doubt. Most of the teachers have elected not to show up, which is kind of good for the few of us who do, because there's not very many people around altogether.
Right.
So far, it's worked out. We keep our distance. We're masked the entire time we're there. And the only people who can be unmasked are musicians in the studio space when they're playing. And we do have good air, and that's it. There's a certain amount of risk here. We have managed to, and if anybody feels bad, they have been very good about staying away. And so people have very often just said, I'm not sure, I'm just going to do this remotely. So what we're not doing is forcing anybody to come in. And there's been a lot of leniency around attendance, and people, as long as you're in touch and stuff like that. All that being said, I have to say, I can see the toll on the students.
On everyone.
Especially the ones, on everyone. But, a lot of these kids are kids. I mean, they're not kids, but they're young adults are are here alone. They're away from home. There's still a number of foreign students who did make it into the place, and stuff is going on at home, and they can't go, and they don't really have people here and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a tough year for them, and lot more work for everybody.
I agree. Well, Jeff, we're coming to an end here. I appreciate your time. Yeah. If there's anybody in the world to get trapped with, that would be a fantastic time. It would be you, my friend. It would be great to be.
I'm a barrel of laughs.
But the things every time I'm around you, I just want to absorb stuff. So the U of T and all their students, they're very lucky to have you, Jeff. We're very lucky as the Toronto Audio Engineering Society to have you. Thank you very much for carrying the torch and maintaining the consistency of the U of T lab. Remember, this is the Jeff Wolpert chapter right now. So
yeah, sure.
Thank you. And do you have any students who are pursuing IP audio distance as a thesis?
Yes. Yeah. We're not quite that techy. So you'd have to be in cahoots, and you can be
With the engineering
with the engineering school. That's right.
Yeah,
these are still mostly musicians for whom mathematics is a enigma.
They can divide by 4, 8, and 16.
Oh my God! That's right.
All right, Jeff. Well, you be well.
Heavy demi-quaver with the best of them.
Thank you so much. You be well.
It's been a pleasure, Anthony. Be well.
Ciao. Thank you for attending the Toronto Audio Engineering Society's presentation. For more information, go to torontoaes.org. The Toronto AES is sponsored by Solotech, Gear Audio, Sono Technique, Bell Media, YSL, Electrosonics, BRTB, Global USS, Adamson, Lawo, and avshop.ca. The Toronto AES is available at the Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. We also have Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts. Enjoy the rest of the show. Good day, Garth. We got Garth on the line here?
Yes. Hello from the West Coast or the left coast, I guess you would say.
The left coast. Well, cheers. You know, there's a Toronto spirit that lives within you. You're born and raised in Toronto. You're huge Maple Leafs fan.
Born and raised, a huge Leafs fan. I like actually poop blue. If that helps.
It's Pape and Danforth, right? You grew up that kind of area.
Yep. So Danforth, Finch, Scarborough too. So
there you go. Yeah. So you grew up in Toronto studios with your dad by yourself. You did your time in Toronto. Where did you work in Toronto?
I was at Phase 1 from 81 to probably 85, and then of course I was at Nimbus 9 for like many years as a kid, and I used to just kind of help out and not leave. Right, I used to go to school and sleep, and then I go from school down there to clean, and then I got to watch Peter Gabriel's, doing Salisbury Hill, and I got to see Mark Farner, Tim Curry, he goes on and on and on. We've got a list.
Well, right? For sure. Nimbus 9 is an important part of Toronto's, important part of Canada's music history, and of course, as a parent, as a father, it's a very, it's a prideful thing to have that instilled with you, and your dad passing on to you, and I heard the recent loss of your dear mom. Sorry to hear that, Garth.
Yes, my mom was 90. She's gonna be 97 in May. She passed April 15th. So she had a good life. Smoked for 75 years, 2 packs a day.
Well,
it's pretty strange. It's pretty strange.
I can't endorse. Are you endorsing cigarette smoking, Garth? Or
No, I'm not.
So
the jeans.
So how's Cooper? How's the place? How's the
Cooper is great. My actual version 8.0 studio is coming along great. I figured probably like about 2 years ago, I was probably becoming a actual dinosaur with all of my technology. So I've completely done a complete revamp to where like I am completely modern at the cusping, edge of the actual technology now, right? So the funny thing is, probably about 4 years ago, maybe, was it 4 years ago with you? You showed me Dante, and you were telling me this stuff, and I went, I didn't understand what the fuck you're talking about. You're going, you can put all these things in this little cable. I'm going, what? I could not understand it. I could not wrap my head around it. And then when it finally happened, I went, oh, you were on the actual cutting edge there, right? And it's like I was like, now I'm wiring up every building on my property so that if somebody wants to record in their bedroom, I just have to run a Cat 6 cable there, right? It's absolutely phenomenal. From going from, my dad told me, well, one day he came home when I was like 8. They just came out with 3-track. What next? And look at where we are, right? We are, I
got 3 tracks in my toilet. It's
like, holy shit, we have come so far. the really sad thing is technology is moving faster than we can afford, right? Because nobody can keep up, because it's just every day something new happens, right?
Well, you know, and the one thing I like to say about the Dante and you know, to talk about audio over IP, it's just like a passion of mine, and I appreciate that. I'm so glad you know, somebody was listening to me. Finally, somebody admits.
I get it now.
Man, oh man, it's an uphill battle, and I think the one thing people forget about Dante and audio over IP is, well, that's the only connector that hasn't really changed in the whole time that audio's been doing. All we did the USB, we did the FireWire, we did. So what were you trading from? What were you going from? Like you say, you're in version 22.5 here. Like what was your studio before, and what is it now?
Well, I started out with an SSL-G series, and that went into my school. So that's now at the school. It became this purist to where I do love the Ward Beck console because I do love how it sounds. But the problem is, a lot of bands come in here and they look at the console and go, we're going to record on that. I go, yeah, but it sounds good. But because we're all so caught up in, we have to look the part. But you know, it got difficult. So then I saw that mixing, I was becoming in the box a lot more, to where I'm still the old guy that likes to touch a fader. So I went out and I got actual AWS 900 plus, because you could flip and use the actual DAW side of it. Touch a fader, because I hate mixing with a mouse. So then I got that all switched around, and then I kind of had the old Pro Tools version. I think I was running 10, and then of course everybody's like up at 12 and plus, right? And so like I kind of had the old Apogees hardware, and so like because of Dante, I switched over to Focusrite, and I have everything Dante with them, and I have the RedNet Pro stuff, and it really sounds great. It gives me the flexibility that I have actually 5 buildings on my property, and I have my living room wired up with Dante cable. I have my laundry room wired up, so we're going to put amps in there. I'm about to dig a trench and go back over to my band house, and I have to dig a little canal to go over to my cabin, to where it's a great open ceiling room, to where like I can do acoustic guitars, percussion, you know, like all that kind of stuff, because this is giving me the whole flexibility of becoming on the cutting edge and modern. Because my old way was just, I was that old fucking bitter guy that's going, analog.
Well, but that was it worked, you know, like no engineer will be above wire. It's really, you know, it's like nobody's going to like do a wireless studio. Who's going to do a wireless studio? But until you can trust that wire and its behavior, I totally get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
So you have a property. You are an escape. You've been COVID ready for how long now? Like you know, you've got a property. You've got multiple houses. What is the business model of the farm? And obviously people are there to work for you. Like what's going on?
What is happening up here is that when Napster came out a long time ago, my cousin's son, who was at the time 13 years old. And he said, have you, what name I said, have you heard of this Nipster? He says, Uncle Garth, it's Napster. I went, oh, that's it, Napster. And then I gave him a name of a band I just did. And every song came up. And I go, so what do you do now? And he had on his desk a stack of lists of songs that all of his friends wanted. And he only charged them $5 per disc to burn them a disc of all the music they wanted. And I looked at that and went, oh my dear Lord, we are all fucked. So I said, I have to get my own place. I didn't want to get a typical studio, because everybody has the room where you have the control room, a lounge, and then you have the live room. And it's very cold, very typical. So I went out and found actually at the time, 14-acre property with 5 buildings. And I have had the control room, live room in every single building of every single house. And at some points, when I have bands here, I basically record and and I'll have 5 functioning studios in every house, in every room, so that you can be in one room doing keyboards, one room doing vocals, one room editing, one room doing guitars and drums, right? So I kind of felt that you had to have a place that I was able to basically be able to do multitasking, and you had to be able to have a place where it's safe, because it's like I've been up here since March, and since COVID came, and I have redone the bathroom, I've redone my control room, I'm putting in a new kitchen, I've added like a new bathroom.
Wow!
I put up a wall.
Concrete countertops coming in.
Yeah, right. Because you know what? It's so easy. It's like, holy shit! I didn't realize how much work it is to actually do it. But it's going to be worth it in the end.
So you've got grand piano, you've got ability to record drums. Are you stocking drums, or do you have space for drums?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have a full live room. I'm slowly getting it to where you can have up to 8 people recording in every building, but all feed into my control room. The one thing that they must know, they haven't put cameras in, because I want people to use their ears. I don't want people to look at the screen. I want them to be able to listen again, because the biggest fear is everyone looks at the screen and goes, that doesn't look right. How does it sound? It doesn't look right. How does it sound?
There's delay introduced with my camera and your camera, and if we're not on like a time synchronous, zero latency, there's no way of making it actual coherency. So
agree.
I get that. I totally get it. But Dante has it seems to be this rejuvenating thing for you. Like, what does are you finding that you're buying like headphone monitoring boxes? Tell me how your network has grown and what you've done with that.
Okay, well, it started out with the what's that? Avion, I think, or Avium, I guess.
Avium, the monitoring system.
Yeah, the monitoring system. I had that. And I just actually last week bought 6 more headphone stations, and then I got the actual RedNet system, and I have the X2P, and I have the other headphone boxes that they deliver, and I also have actually 8-channel Focusrite mic pre-box that I can put in any house, and it's kind of given me the fact that I'm tired of looking at a screen. You want people to feel inspired. I've done drums outside. I've done vocals outside. I've done acoustics outside. I've done Leslie guitars outside, because it's just really boring now that if you've been doing this as long as I have been doing it, just to keep doing the same thing, to where you put the Leslie in the live room, and then you basically put the mics up. It's like, now you can do it outside. It also kind of inspires the player, because it's something that they have never done before. The music is getting, to say the least, samey. It's just everyone's using the same plugins, the same hardware, the same software. No one is taking risks. So my feeling is this whole venture here is going to allow people to take risks and to try things that they haven't done in the past.
I think we've been friends for a while, and you're well documented, Garth. Like, you can watch a million YouTube videos about you on. So, but you've always pushed bands to try something different, and like, is originality unlimited? Like, you've had it in every room. Like, even in yourself, is it just a change of scenery that inspires you? What does the scenery do to that, and how do you make the same thing for you different all the time?
Well, you know what? It's like, I get bored. I think, like a lot of people that make records, they get bored. It's like, I'm always constantly trying to improve. I felt that before this new swing, I had kind of reached the point of to where I felt that I was falling behind the curve, and like I'd be talking to all of my partners and friends that are in the business, and they're all saying, have you tried this, try this? I'm going, no, what's that? And then I kind of went, okay, I have to re-educate myself. We all have to do that, right? So I felt that the one thing that doesn't change is you still have to have a actual great song, but you can do it now with so much new technology. And in the old days, you used to go to the vault and shut that control room door, and then that's kind of it all happened. Now you can do it anywhere, right? So it just I feel I'm heading back into the studio again because it's like I want to be there now. Where in the past I was just like, yeah, good.
Hey, you've got the resort. You've got getaway. You've got the ability to sleep like a half orchestra, I imagine.
Yep.
And you accommodate people. How has obviously this pandemic thing? You're on an island. How has that changed your business model? Are you, like you say, cleaning up, ramping up as everybody is getting ready? What's the strategy for when everybody has a vaccine, and how has it been for you while you have all this time to yourself to stay at home and do the things you wanted to do at home for a long time?
Well, the thing is, red rum has kind of set in. I kind of feel like The Shining, to where like I'm beginning to climb the walls. But everyone's happening with that, because I've been in Vancouver since March probably 5 times. Yeah, I've been there for like a day, and I get in and I come back up, because I'm kind of at that age to where like I don't really want to test COVID, because I'm kind of at that age to where with the stats kind of say if you get it, you're not going to do well. So I've been very diligent. I haven't really done much of recording since then, but since March I went, okay, this is going to be going on for a while. So I felt this was a good time to do the move and do the switch, because I do think we're like a long way away from being safe. And what better place for a band and a producer to come and actually not have to leave? You can all kind of hunker down and actually make music here. I was going to be doing songwriting camps here. You had 3 booked, and I got shut down because of COVID, because nobody could come from the States, right? So it's kind of on hold, but I'm kind of like a special place to where I'm not in the city, right? It takes a lot. People have to hop on the ferry and actually get here. But once they come, they're thrilled. I did the Alex Cuba record here, which actually John Bailey won the best engineer, and he also got nominated for the Grammy too, right? So it actually works here. The place does work well.
No, that's super. I find that the resort, the getaway, it would be a dream place. You sit down, make a record. So Bill Kennedy, our mutual friend, may he rest in peace.
Poor Bill.
His birthday's coming up, so I was just thinking about him the other day. He talked a lot about the dream of what you got going on, and always spoken in great awe of what you were doing, and so on and so forth. So. Cheers.
Yeah. I miss Bill.
Miss Bill too.
Yeah. He was a spark. Yeah, he was a spark. His energy was so intense. He was a force, right? And the fact that he got the boost took him down is sad, right? But you know what? He's up there looking at us, and he's going, "Yeah, give me a smoke."
Well, when it comes down to your relationships with people, like you were always studio hopping, doing sessions, going to LA. You obviously maintain your contacts down there. You maintain your business relationships. You've been out to Toronto. You spoke. You traveled. What has it been like? Like, are you enjoying the staying at home now, or are you struggling with that? Like because you're a socialite or not?
Well, you know what, the thing that I do miss is like a hockey team. When you're in the dressing room with the guys, you're like hanging out, right? I do miss being at Henson Studios in LA, and you're in the hallways, and there's your buds in that room, and your other buds in that room. There's the whole social aspect of it. I'm getting tired of Zoom meetings to where you're on Zoom. It becomes so cold and not actually personal. Also, the thing that I do miss the most is giving someone a big hug. I'm a hugger, right? I like to hug people.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
You know,
it's like the pheromones. We miss the pheromone exchange between people when we give that.
Yeah.
You know, if I can smell you, I'm too close. I'm too close.
And the great thing about COVID is bathing doesn't really have to happen for like a week or two, right? Because no one's going to see you, so you can
smell-o-vision. There's no smell-o-vision today, right? Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally get that. Well, you're involved with the school. You're still involved with Bob at the school, and who else has joined the school? What is happening with school and the students and these young minds that you are raising for the next generation of the post-COVID audio world? What does the post-COVID audio world look like for somebody who's in school and somebody who's still wanting to learn the craft that is making records?
Well, you know what the funny thing is, since COVID has hit, streaming has gone way up. Streaming music is being played more than any time before in the history of the world, which is why you see Merck Mariakis, who is buying up everyone's catalogs because the great thing is, my mom, when she went through the Depression, I said, how'd you get through it? She said, everyone danced. You know, nobody had food, but everyone would dance. I see with COVID that everyone's doing the same thing. There better be some great songs coming up because everyone has time to write and to learn their craft. I do think the kids coming into the music business today, because of the technology, are going to be so far better off because it's a lot easier to do it, right? And you hope that they can be inspired to take on new great things, right? Because boy, what a great life we've been. What you're having to make music, you get paid for it, is great,
Well, and it's new technology too. Like you say, your Dante network is a couple of steps away from hooking up to my Dante network, and and
it's scary.
It is scary, but at the same time, is that not an exciting thing that people should be embracing, like you have?
Yeah, it's thrilling. It's so thrilling. The fact that I do know that they've done a few actually session wire things, like to where you can go online. It's still weird not being able to actually off of the energy that you're in the room with somebody. You had to be able to actually look them in the eye. I suppose now it's on the screen and you have to kind of like look for their eyes. So that technology is great. The fact is that the kids that are going to be coming out still have to take risks. They still have to find that new thing that nobody has done. In this new technology with Dante and what Focusrite has done, they've given them the tools. Now they have to break the rules, right? And they have to do things that nobody is done, and they should be able to do that, I think. Is some of this distracting, or is this all just an exercise for our civilization to get better at making these types of these connections remotely? Like you say, we're zoomed out. Well, hey, I don't have that look in your eye. I don't have that that pheromone exchange. Like, what do you think is like you saying the visual, the presence? How do we increase the presence of performances in a room now that we're kind of forced to be separated? Well, it's kind of like cyber sex versus real sex, right? You're watching it on screen, or you're actually having sex. It can't be replaced. It cannot be. And until they get the vaccine, and until we get people back in the same room. It's even hard that when you have them in the room and they all have on masks, because there's that barrier. There's that
half smile. You can't see a half smile.
Yeah. It's almost like the monkey that has the hands over the mouth, the ears, and the eyes, right? It's like now over the mouth, and it's kind of hard to get that. You have to be able to pull that kind of emotion, because you get no facial expressions except the eyes, right?
I get that. So what have you had a number one hit with Big Wreck? You that was last year, two years ago.
Last year, 2 years ago, and they did a record with a band called Kensington. It came out at number one in Holland. They won. They were nominated for Record of the Year in Holland. He also won Best Rock Record. I'm actually starting the new Devin Townsend record soon. We've kind of put it on hold until COVID is better. So everything's just kind of on the hold until we can all be in the room together, because music has to be made with everybody in the same room, to me, you know.
So that's the quote. You know, if I was going to title this video anything, it would be Garth Richardson says, you know, music has to be made in the exact same room. So and you grew up with that, like because your experience growing up with your dad and being in those rooms with those people, like you've witnessed your fair share of magic. What moments, you know, what about Toronto, you know, and growing up in Toronto and being in that music scene, what do you remember most about Toronto, and what do you hope Toronto, like you say, comes back to when the dance clubs open and the music starts flowing again?
Yeah, well, you know what the funny thing is, I got to watch the first Peter Gabriel record being made, and I got to sit inside of the control room because my job was to get people food. And there was Larry Fast, Tony Levin, Alan Schwartzberg, Jimmy Malin, Robert Fripp, Steve Hunter, I forget who the keyboard player was, and Peter Gabriel, and actually Bob Ezrin. And to watch these guys all feed off of each other and to feel the like emotion and the sense of power that they gave, and that was a real special time. And I also want to say that I'm so proud of what's coming out of Toronto, because you know what, we have so many incredible things happening, and it's all coming out of people from Toronto. The Drake team, the Weekend team, all these guys and gals are just hitting it out of the ballpark, right? So Canada, there seems to be, it must be the poutine or the Tim's coffee, but there's some incredibly insane, amazing people, right?
It's the woodshedding.
It's always been,
woodshedding.
Yeah. It's always been that way, because you look at Danny Langwall, you look at Bob Rock, you look at Bruce Fairbairn, you look at my dad, you look at Bob Ezrin, Mike Fraser, Randy Staub, the list goes on and on and on and on. You know, there's David Bendith. There's, you know, it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. There's some incredible people that have all come out of Toronto area too, right? And also Vancouver too, right? So there just seems to be something up here: the air, the water, the coffee. I guess. The coffee,
and you hit on something there whereas, you know, like there's a lot of studios that you're fortunate you're on a private property, it's your home. You know, there's a lot of studios who got hit very hard with rent and stuff. Are you like, obviously there's a shift happening in the live sound industry, in the performance industry. How is Vancouver being hit by this, and what do you think some of the reaction will be post COVID for the Vancouver area?
Well, I think everybody's struggling. I know if it wasn't for the grants that actually Factor has given out, and also Thank You Factor, and also the grants that the government has given out, we'd be in real trouble. The fact is that if you look at the live shows, it's not even the live shows that are getting hurt. It's everybody under it. It's everybody in the, you know, selling T-shirts, selling food, selling tickets, selling beer before the show, the restaurants. everybody is hurting. When actually Live Nation came out and said that they have lost 95% of their business because there's no shows, then if you look at everything under that, what they support, it's going to be sad. I do think that once we come out and we can all hang out together, it's going to be shows every single night, because people are going to want to do that same thing that we've talked about. Like this. That's why everybody wants to be in the same room to experience that feeling.
It's right? The drinking and dancing. You guys did it very well at Canada Music Week last year, a couple of years ago. This bar cart rolls in and there's just like, have free booze. This is what making records all about too. There's a sense to that.
Yeah. It's like everybody has to embrace each other. Right.
Everybody has to embrace each other. Well, Garth, thank you. I want to be mindful of your time and respectful of your time. I know you're busy.
No, it's all good.
You're a busy human being. Thank you so very much for participating in the Toronto Audio. I'd love to do.
Great.
I'd love to do like a full 2 hours with you sometime and have a live thing with people asking questions. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Love it, sir. Pleasure.
You be well. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you for attending the Toronto Audio Engineering Society's presentation. For more information, go to torontoaes.org. The Toronto AES is sponsored by Solotech, Gear Audio, Sonotechnique, Bell Media, YSL, Electrosonics, BRTB, Global USS, Adamson, Lawo, and avshop.ca. The Toronto AES is available at the Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. We also have Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts. Enjoy the rest of the show. Hello, Roberto Capretta. Have we got you there?
Yes, you do. Hello, Anthony. How are you?
Good day, sir. Well, geez, I'm glad I could catch you in between. You've been doing some crazy things over the last month. You are one of Canada's most essential audio services. You are one of the lead A1s for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and that encompasses both productions that are happening in studios in Toronto, as well as stuff that happens on the road. It's so fantastic to see you, sir. How are things?
Oh, they're fine. Things are unfolded quite differently as I thought they would this year, with everybody else.
As everybody else thought. Well, it's been 8 months. It's been 8 months since we got our lockdown. What were some of the original reactions and changes to productions and it came to a screeching, crashing halt. What did that look like from your point of view, from a communications point of view?
Well, it was quite the change. When all this came down, I was wondering, I usually do the NHL playoffs right through the finals. So for me, am I going somewhere for 2 months? Am I going to the States? How is this going to work? And then there was Canada Day and the Olympics. So when this first came down, no one knew what was going on. And it just all gradually got canceled. And I think it more or less hit all of us that, well, we're not going to the States and the hockey's not coming back. There's going to be no Olympics. There's going to be no outdoor gathering in June, but to do Canada Day. So that at one point when everything got canceled, it's like, what are we going to do for 6 months? And then basically very quickly, CBC greenlit a show that talked about the pandemic, which was Tom Power's What He At, it was called. And he was in his living room. And so a couple of us were brought in the studios to do that, basically within a couple of weeks after the shutdown started. So that was the first show that I did under this new format. Tom's in his living room doing his radio show and then a TV show. And we had to put equipment in there, an Arvon IO, so some sort of IP configuration, and we used LiveView to do pictures and IFB and to travel the audio back to us. And then all the people that we were interviewing, well, they were all at home, using Zoom or Facebook, and we quickly realized that everybody at home has really crappy internet service.
Yes.
So we interviewing all sorts of people who were like big music stars and actors in the States or through Canada, and then just some other people who were basically like first responders. And then getting them to talk to each other with high quality video. There were latency issues, and we were retiming things. And then and the quality was just sporadic. And we also had to walk everybody through their technology. A lot of people don't know how to set their technology. We shut off most of the features of Zoom, tried to basically lean towards a music quality of performance, shutting off all the companders and things to try to get, as clear as possible. One of our final solutions, if someone was doing a music performance, we more or less gave up taking that online, and we had them basically record it and then send it to us. And I think that's been how a lot of people have been.
I asked somebody else. How did you synchronize all your performers? What was the secret sauce to synchronizing all these performers?
Yeah. Well, basically cheating. Or you're talking about?
Did you do a slate? What did you do? How did you give them a count? Did you synchronize? What did you receive as a post production? Like obviously, like we've got colleagues who deal with the post production. Yeah. How did they synchronize all of these live performances together?
Well, I think a lot of the times the musicians did it themselves, and they were using. Some apps to do it, and they were basically sending the tracks to an engineer. So I think they were using.
So they would put a bed track and a click track, and they would just move the session around, and it's like here's everything.
Yeah, and then a lot of our performances were one person or two people on camera in front of a guitar, but it just sounded horrible, they would sometimes record with their iPhone and their computer to get two different camera angles, but then our post people had to sync it. So they would do a count, you'd have to line it up, and I'm sure there were drift issues.
Yes. So I don't know. Okay, all right. Have you got a phone? You got your cell phone on you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I want to show you this great thing for synchronizing multiple cameras. I'm going to do it to go to time.is. And sorry, everyone, we're doing this at a different... so go to time.is as a website. So if you have multiple cameras that you need to synchronize...
Yeah, I've got it. I'm going to it now. There it is.
I feel like Doc Brown. Okay, put them up to your camera. Put it 7. Oh, look at this. Roberto. That's our offset. Anyways, so if you have like 15 or 300 cameras to synchronize around the world, let me tell you that this is the best thing I have ever come up with. I have a whole computer that runs it in a little window. So with moving people from home, what were some of the challenges of you said the internet. So the internet at home is designed to download. It's not designed to upload, right? So what do you like right now? I'm not sending you any video. I'm just receiving your video just so I can pray that I get the better signal. What other tricks have you learned to manage bandwidth in this pandemic world?
Some of them are very basic. So with even with our host, his wife was working from home, so she had to basically go offline, work offline. So you're managing people physically in their homes and what they can do. And then eventually we ended up putting a separate dedicated line in his house. So that's what I have here. My wife is a professor at a university, and I have kids working from home. So I'm running Kojiko and Bell 5, both at the same time. There you go. So one goes down. The other company is not down at the same time, and we kind of separate people. And I first did that with Tom Powers, and then we also had backup technology, like some things like we're using Arvon.io as a backup IP IFB because it had less latency than LiveView. And then as a third backup third solution, we also ran Unity on our telephones, and we ran Tom's IFB through his phone during a Unity app that we use for many different things.
So you're distributing your failure points across different technologies that fail in different ways, and that's super smart. That's super smart. So with the say again.
By necessity, sorry. We had to because we.
Yeah. That's super smart, man. With the NHL, I don't know if we can talk about the NHL. Can you talk about it? So what has changed there in terms of the bubble? Like, what was that bubble like? How did they manage the crews? How did they make that television happen for us all?
That was very interesting. Once it finally came down in mid-July, I did not go to the bubble in Edmonton, but many of my friends were there, and I was in the sort of bubble in the studio, in the control studio, where we had some talent, like Ron McClain or Dave Amber and others, and other key people. They were basically on Zoom or FaceTime. Some hosts like Kelly Hrudey or Cassie Campbell were at their homes. The bubble in Edmonton was very interesting. The people who went there, the NHL created basically two different kinds of bubbles. One that had access to the players, and if you had access to the players and had to be in the lower bowl area, you had to be in their hotel. They controlled where you ate, what you did 100% of the time. You were just basically back and forth to wherever room that you worked in the arena, to your hotel room. Restaurants were figured out. There were specific NHL restaurants, and that was it. And you were tested every day. Some of my friends have had 80, 90 COVID tests so far this year. If you broke the rule, you were fired. There was no exceptions.
No exceptions. You're done. You're blacklisted. Yes. You blacklisted.
Apparently, yeah. And we heard stories of a few people experiencing that. And then there was like a medium bubble that some of our announcers had. So the announcers were allowed. They were placed in the upper bowl, or where, like, say, the suites would be. And then they would call games. They would appear there, nowhere near the players. So they were allowed to kind of do their own thing during the day. And then we basically had a mixer, just mixed the booth and was with them in each city, like Edmonton and Toronto. And they would submix their ears because the game was actually mixed by a control room here in Toronto. So we had to do a local submix for that. And they were in a different, looser bubble that wasn't as strict, which was kind of nice for them. But any of our hosts that were interviewing, say a player, the locker room interview that happens in between every period. Well, the player would just show up at a microphone and a speaker, and our host would be on a different level room that the NHL had set up. And basically, it was like this:
voice of God. Hey guys, and you had monitors, you had video, obviously, because you're doing television, so you have that. But so you have these duplex communication links between talent and I gotcha.
But then there were on those are some of our problems again, where everything was a sync issue. Everything we had coming in, I was floating sync and moving stuff around, and sometimes that sync would drift, which is very challenging, whether it was Tom Powers, but even with the NHL, we would have an interview, and then for some reason, sometimes the question would happen, and you could hear the echo and the speaker get into the player, and that had to be edited so it wasn't perfect.
Well, and even now, if I yell into my mic, I will excite your entire living room with audio, and I will, and that echo cancellation will disappear, so I use headphones and I use a totally different sound card, but I appreciate you coming, Roberto. You've got some fantastic stuff you were doing in the studios. So now at CBC and CBC Studios, we're now called CBC Studios. Is that what it's called now? So
that's correct.
So we've had we've got 8 big rooms that are constantly seeing film productions and television productions. Well, we just had Dragon's Den. We had Family Feud. These are things that are done. So
Right.
what was it like to be in the studio and coordinating those things? Are you dealing with wireless microphones differently in the future? How are you managing, line arrays, people, crowds? What does it look like to be a guest at the CBC, to participate in the programs that CBC creates for Canada?
It's very different. Everything's slower. For Family Feud, we still hung our recently purchased Meyer arrays that we got, even though there was no audience, because we still wanted the show to sound the same, and the talent needs. It has to feel the same. So we're still using our line arrays hung in the same spot over the stage to help Jerry D, who was the host, feel that energy, even though there was no crowd. And it's very difficult being a comedian telling a joke or when there's not much response. So then we had producers a couple producers in the audience that would kind of do like a guide track applause or help. That would help post. That would help Jerry's energy. It would also help guide the talent a bit.
Do we have a sweetener yet? Do we have an in-house sweetener? Do we have a sweetener yet for these things, or is that added in post? You did it in post. Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. A long time ago, way back, I've done some of that stuff live, but because the show was edited, it was it needed sweetening to cover the edits anyway. And so it's just better to do it in post than to do it live. But there was debate about how we would do that. But this is what they settled on. You asked about wireless microphones. That was kind of tricky because basically everything has to be sterilized before and after use. So and then we wanted to limit, for example, Jerry's contact had to be limited. So he had one A2 dedicated to him, and that person couldn't leave that bubble. That person just dealt with Jerry. So Kelly Brown was Jerry's basically A2 for the entire run. Nobody else touched Jerry or handled his stuff. She sterilized before and after. We were wearing gloves. Handling microphones with gloves is hard.
Wow. We buy like the DPA water resistant capsules.
Yes.
So this is our COVID plan. Is there new like microphone handling techniques or things that you would advise people to think about, because like these procedures aren't going to go away anytime soon, I think, Roberto.
Yeah, some things are permanent. Like for microphones and any in-ears, I think some of the things that we had done in the past, really should be just avoided. But how a microphone can be cleaned, the damage that could cause to a capsule by getting a bunch of liquid all over it. We've checked with some manufacturers about how we can say clean consoles. Like, can we be using this kind of solution on console services around lighting and stuff? And they have come back with specific responses. You just can't just pop isopropyl all over these screens, and you don't want to lose labeling.
You have an engineered solution. Because like the piece of gear has to last 20 years, so you have an engineered solution to clean it. No, solution that you dump on stuff. So it's engineered solution.
And timing wise, so the A2 would sterilize. We did this with Rogers for the microphones as well, like for hockey. They would wipe down the mics. We have plexiglass shields on stands, so if they have to stand close together, there's a plexiglass shield on a little lighting or mic stand, believe it or not. And
they don't have the little gloves they put their hands in yet to like a clean room.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. And all the A2s are complaining that it slows things down. And the problem with the gloves, the problem with the gloves was that when people talk surgical gloves and someone's a surgeon, well, they toss out their gloves 20, 30 times a day at least. When if we're handed gloves and then we're using them, then we're contaminating the gloves.
I get that. So
we're not winning at all.
It's tricky. Well, and it's also, I worked at Bell Media, and they had somebody who had a severe latex allergy, and there wasn't latex allowed in the building, and people are hypersensitive to this stuff, and you wear gloves all day, and you're right, like you have, each glove has a different set of talc in it. Yeah, I get that. That's super hard. It sounds like there's a lot of coping. Like there's a lot of stress that's introduced with this, and like how have they been dealing with giving time off, and like it was a huge sprint to do to do something like the NHL. What are production companies starting to do to help people in this unique situation?
I think CBC recently has recognized, I think they're trying to offer everybody like a couple days rest at some point that you can take, almost like a sick time. That if you've been overstressed, et cetera, you need a period of like a bit of time off. You can take that. I know other sorts of companies and have done the same. They are checking. They have been checking in with us and trying to get our feedback of how things are working, and they've been very diligent in trying to keep things safe. So, for example, the 10th floor where the CBC Studios is isolated. They're not allowing people from other floors to come use the washrooms. We've separated the washrooms between crew and guests. They're trying to keep everybody safe and well, and they're getting our feedback. The one thing that's happened is that there has been a big rush to get shows done, and before another shutdown. And so I'm not sure. We've expressed our concerns that with all the extra time now it's taking, for example, for A2s to mic and do people, and then get to them, we need a little bit more time to get in there. We can't be as fast. We're just running in, touching people, moving things around, for example.
And being an A2 is a very personal. Here, let me put my hands in places that. Let me get, and it's let me delicately surgically implant this wire into your pants. That relationship is already stressful enough, and then you add gloves, face shield, and if you feared operating rooms as a child, you would be traumatic getting a microphone put on you now, and that's stressful.
Yeah. So we've tried when we can. If they can do it themselves, then we'll just kind of guide them and say yes, and kind of guide them through it. And then at other points in time, it's all about the guests or the hosts or whoever talent is, their comfort level. And so we have to respect that space at all times. And at some point in times, they will ask for more assistance and allow you to get in closer. And then it's up to our person to make sure that they feel safe and they can do so. But there has been very good support for all that there. No one's being forced to do anything that they're uncomfortable.
So CBC, what's the future of these remote assets as the up and coming shows are in production?
I think we're going to be seeing more and more of this. We've been separating people even in the studios. So more Arvon, more wireless, more intercom things. We use a lot of, obviously we use a lot of free speak. I see us expanding how much intercom we have, whether it's wireless or belt packs for people or Arvon or basically full intercom panels. So there'll be, for the foreseeable future, more and more of whatever we can do to isolate and spread people around and distance communications, which means we need more the communication infrastructure. We have a lot more RF mics coming, which is always a good thing. We have our Axient Digitals and all our DPA microphones. That's going to be very nice for us because we usually make choices whether we're using headset mics or lavalier mics, and now we have matching matching mics, but basically, however we can keep people distance, have a lot of backups in place.
Contingencies, it's contingencies. Well, Roberto, thank you so very much for your time. It's always a pleasure to chat with you about this. Thank you for coming out.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for attending the Toronto Audio Engineering Society's presentation. For more information, go to torontoaes.org. The Toronto AES is sponsored by Solotech, Gear Audio, Sonotechnique, Bell Media, YSL, Electrosonics, BRTB, Global USS, Adamson, Lawo, and avshop.ca. The Toronto AES is available at the Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. We also have Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts. Enjoy the rest of the show. Hello, Doug McClement. Have we got Doug McClement on the line there?
Yes, we do.
Hello, sir. Good to see you. I've been saying happy COVID because, what do you say?
Mm-hmm.
How have the last 8 months changed your life, Doug? What's been going on? You've been busy.
Well, yeah, more or less. It's certainly changed things because I'm so much of LiveWire's business. It's the big people event business, and that has gone away, of course. So, in fact, we were literally setting up for the Juno Awards in Saskatoon back in March 13th. We'd been there for 3 days running cables and setting up and interfacing with the venue. And then the very morning that we were supposed to start sound checking the bands, on the Thursday morning, they came out and had a meeting and told us all to pack it all up and go home. So we were right in the middle of a remote halfway across the country with a 100-man crew, and we had to tear everything down and leave. So we kind of felt it was coming, just by all the news items that week. But it was pretty a bitter pill to swallow, and we sort of came back home. The truck went into the garage and has pretty well been there since. We've done one gig with the mobile since March, and that was the Country Music Awards back in August, and we did that at Burrells Creek, well, of course with no audience. And we just parked the truck in the middle of the field out there at Burrells Creek and ran cables to 4 different stages. So we were able to do a COVID-friendly Country Music Awards just with the existing things that be in, signing the form when we arrived on site, and they take your temperature, of course. So people are very good. People are very careful about things, but certainly my truck business has disappeared, so I've had to fill that in with other means of income. So I've been fairly also since I teach 2 days a week at the Harris Institute, and it was closed for 2 or 3 months. That went away for a while too, although we're back in October and most of November, but again, it just closed down today for a week, and we're going to start doing stuff online. So,
well, and that's
it's affected the planet. It's affected everybody, of course.
Well, and nobody had pandemic planning.
No, not really. And that's probably sloppy on everybody's part, but you're absolutely right. I think we've all had our heads in the sand about this sort of thing, and after the SARS outbreak, we probably should have been a little more careful and had a plan B. But people like to, move on to the next thing and hope that the bad things don't happen. So,
well,
it's been really tough. I mean, in our industry, since the majority of things that I do is recording live concerts, our end of the business is going to be one of the very last things to come back. So I have had to, find some other ways to generate income, and my expenses stay pretty much the same. My rent is, fortunately, I qualified for that rent program that the government brought in, and my landlord applied for it, and so I'm part of that program where the government's paying 50% of the rent on the warehouse, and I'm paying 25, and the landlord's paying 25, and so everybody's taking a bit of a hit. But at least I'm able to stay at where I've been for the last 13 years and have a base of operations. So I think the government has done as well as they can under the circumstances, and it's cruising along.
I think you're right. And then we're lucky to have such a support system. There are some people who don't have that support system, and the live industry, you're right, has been hit just extremely hard. And like you say, from the live, if your bread and butter is the live venue, and there's no live event. So I get that. I totally get that.
One thing that happens, showing how people are kind of all pitching in, my insurance company called me and said, "Doug, your truck is in dry dock for the next year, effectively, right?" And I said, "Yeah, pretty much." And they said, "You shouldn't really be paying insurance based on having a mobile studio. We are going to knock your rate down as if it was a land-based studio." And they effectively cut my insurance in half for the year, and that was voluntary on their part.
That's amazing.
So it makes me a loyal customer going forward, because they didn't have to do that, and it really, really helped me out. So that's something that happened.
I totally get that, and I think there's a lot of people who are coming together and banding together to get that, and the live music industry and the arts have particularly been hit extremely hard by this. So that's a for sure. So as you're still in contact, so many people know you, Doug, and so many people, so many people, and you're a very social person when it comes to these things. How has it been for you to be at home and be away from being at these events? Like, has it been difficult for you? What's been going on there?
It's been tricky, but on the other hand, I've had something going on just about every week, because we have done a few events where, rather than these events taking place in a theater, they've been recording bands in bizarre locations. I spent all day yesterday, for example, in the back room of Paul Hand's piano shop on Yonge Street, recording Sarah Slane, who was out in the actual main part of the store playing on a beautiful grand piano, but I was in the back room recording, and this was for the Mayor's Evening for the Arts, and we recorded 4 groups on Thursday and Friday at the Bassett Theatre at the Metro Convention Center. Again, no audience, and those things are going to be incorporated into a show that will be webcast on December 8th. The other thing that I've been very involved in since April is the reopening of the Mocambo. We were so close. They were so close to reopening. They were literally 10 days away from having their big opening when everything got shut down. Fortunately, though, the bar has been set up with the idea of webcasting in mind. And so there's a very solid internet pipe leaving that building, and a 4-camera video setup with robotic cameras, a video control room. And I had been hired in February to be the audio engineer in the studio there. And so we've done about a dozen webcasts that are there. I'm in there for 8 of the next 9 days doing shows for the Andy Kim Christmas show, and something for the Toronto Raptors through Messiah Jury's charity, Giants of Africa. We're doing a band called the Mono Whales this weekend. So we've done, I guess, a couple of comedy shows with Ron James and Carla Collins. We've done some rock shows with Coney Hatch, 5440, and Big Wreck. We've done some acoustic shows with Kim Mitchell, a big record release party. And some rap shows too. So they are doing things in there. For a while, when people were allowed in, a very limited audience, we were able to do things with an audience of 50 people. But now, of course, it's just crew and band, and we have to keep the band 6 feet apart on stage and put plastic barriers up in front of anybody who's singing. Everybody has to sign a form saying, just the typical COVID forms, and have their temperature taken when they enter the building, and their temperature taken when they leave the building, wear masks at all time. And people are understanding and are really good about it. So I think people are being very intelligent. It's a drag, but at least we're doing some work. But it's also really frustrating for the people running the bar, because they were so close to having the big opening, and they've been working on this thing for 3 or 4 years. So it's kind of like the Olympics. You prepare for this event, and then it gets called off. And speaking of that, that's something I called off. I should have been in Japan for 5 weeks in July doing the Olympics, but now it looks like it'll be next July. So
that's right. We had at the ZBC we had similar delays when it comes to the Olympics. There was are they going to do it? Are they going to? Oh God, please! I don't know. Oh, they canceled it. All right, everybody, let's just shut it down. Just shut it down.
The other day to somebody that it's going to be very interesting doing the Olympics, the Summer Olympics next year, because the Winter Olympics will be like 7 months later. They're going to be a very, very quick turnaround, because the Winter Olympics are in Beijing in 2022.
We're just going to leave it all set up. Just leave it all set up. It's quicker.
So it's going to be quite a pretty intense Olympic thing for the 2 years for the crews that work on those.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
But I'm hoping by then, or everybody's hoping by then, of course, that they've got the vaccine working and produced in sufficient quantities to whether the Olympics will happen with an audience or not, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they'll make it happen, even if they can't do it with an audience. It's just too much money grinding on it.
So you've done a lot of live events. You've done a lot of music for sport. You do a lot of that type of stuff. Your forte is definitely music, Doug. You're undeniably, the live remote music guy.
Music for television.
Music for television. Yeah. So now that sports and sports has all gone virtual with screens, et cetera, are sport organizations, like the CFL had canceled their entire season. Like nobody saw that coming. Like so you would have been doing Grey Cup. You would have been doing some of the other Labor Day game. I imagine was as you've been a regular.
Yeah, they had the last 2 seasons. They've been doing a halftime show from each city over the course of the season, and we would do the ones in Toronto and Hamilton. They'd use local trucks for Vancouver and Edmonton and Winnipeg, of course, but we did the Ontario ones, and I missed that. We did some great shows with the CFL. They've been a great customer of ours for 15 years, and it was weird. This is the first year I've missed Grey Cup in 15 years. I don't think there's going to be anything happening New Year's Eve. This might be the first New Year's Eve that I haven't worked in about 40 years.
Wow. So having said that, you've never had a summer off, Doug. Like you've never had a summer off.
No.
So
what? Doing something every week. I didn't have any period where I wasn't doing something, every 7 days. We did.
Sorry. You weren't on the road. You didn't have those kind of gigs. Like it's been a very long time since some of these performers have taken this sort of break and this sort of hiatus. Yeah. So what did you accomplish? Like your warehouse, you've got tapes, you've got transfers. You're a busy producer. What's been keeping your hands busy and your brain busy?
Well, a lot of clients have taken this opportunity to go through their old analog tapes and decide to transfer them to Pro Tools and finally get around to remixing them. So I've baked and transferred hundreds of reels of tape since March. We did 45 reels for Max Webster. We did 85 reels for the estate of Salome Bay. I've got 2 tapes baking as we speak over at the studio that I'm going to transfer tomorrow for a dance artist called Kinga that was recorded back in the late 80s. So that's been the great thing about that is it's very COVID friendly and that the client can come by, drop the tapes on our doorstep. I do the work. I email them the files.
Yes.
And I come and pick up the tapes at some of the days. So I can do that on my own without the client being present in the control room. So it works out well. And I've actually, since the truck has not been going out, I've actually got all my analog reel-to-reel machines in the truck right now. 4-track, 8-track, 2-track, quarter-inch, quarter-track, half-track. There's probably 6 reel-to-reels in there right now, an adapt machine and the cassette deck, and I've been doing a lot of hours of transferring for
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's easy to do. I think the tape transfer. You're right. It's very COVID friendly, click and collect type of thing. You're very right. That is.
The drag is almost all any tapes from the 90s and the 80s, all the splices have dried out. So if there's 20 or 30 splices in the tape, you have to redo all the splices, and that's kind of intense. But other than that, it's some of the artists are so happy to get these tapes. Some of the tapes come in and they're just white boxes, or just the name of the band, and they don't know where the concert was or what the date was, and you're trying to listen to it and see if they mention anything from the stage as to where they are or when it is, or if there's a clue they might mention a news item or something, and then you can figure out, this was
right. You can date it.
Yeah,
yes.
Some elected prime minister or something, and you can date it. But it's the look on their faces when they get some of these tapes. I just did one last week for a guy that came with this. One of the tapes was a white box, and I said, "Oh, it's these 2 songs." He goes, "Oh my God, that's the first demo I ever did. I had no idea I still had that." So, it's kind of a bit of an adventure for some of these customers to discover some of these old
totally.
tapes. So I've been doing a lot of that, just touching up the truck a little bit, sanding down. The truck's 18 years old now, so I've been doing some body work on the truck while it's been sitting in the garage. Things I meant to get around to for quite a while. And,
repairs. Did you do the Marie Kondo cleaning? Did it spark joy and you let it dis?
We did do a decluttering in the warehouse and created a fair bit of space, enough that I was able to find a little subspace and rent it out to somebody, which was nice. It's a little easier to find stuff. I found in the very cleaning up of the warehouse, I found a few things that I thought were gone, that I hadn't seen in years. So that was worthwhile, and I think we filled up a dumpster full of old gear and stuff. And I've actually purchased a couple of new items, some of which have to do with this analog transfer business, and some things for the truck, because some things have been going out for bargain basement prices. I think a few people in my age group have decided that they're so close to retirement that they were just this is it. They're not coming back after COVID, so they're divesting themselves of a lot of the gear. And there's quite a bit of good used gear floating around right now.
Yes,
at really good prices.
And it's also it's a buyer's market because COVID has hurt people's incomes as well. I felt
I went out to Westbury Sound on Monday afternoon, the day before they started the auction, and I wanted to see what was out there. But more than that, I just wanted to walk through the building one more time. I mean, Westbury and my career have sort of gone. We started at the same time, and those guys have been so good to me over the last 40 years. And it was heartbreaking to walk in there and just see all the stuff with prices on it. And of course, none of the staff that's been there, all those guys have been there for 30, 35 years. And it's sad to see a major Toronto audio facility like Westbury Sound go down, But what can you do? They're in the live event business. They've got this monstrous warehouse with whatever it was, 75 people working full time. How do you keep that going when you've got no customers?
So then that comes down to, this isn't over.
No.
So with the CBC, they've said, you're coming back in 8 months. So with another 8 months of this, Doug, what are some of your students running into, and what are some of the creative ways? I know you teach a course that's very, I participate in it sometimes. Excuse me. It is a course where people do real life scenarios. What can we do, Doug? What can we do?
Well, I feel sorry for the people, not just my audio students, but people generally that are graduating, my daughter being one of them, in 2020 or 2021. It's obviously the worst job market in the last 30 years. All they can do is console themselves, I think, in the fact that when things do come back, and I firmly believe this, I think there's going to be a tsunami of work. It may not be exactly what people were doing before COVID, but people want music. They want to go to concerts. They want to be entertained. And I think there will be a big demand for entertainment-related audio once things come back. And I think what the equivalent, it'll be sort of like, my mom often talked about the end of World War II, because she was a teenager. She would have been about 19 when the war ended, and suddenly everybody came back and they bought cars and they bought houses and they started going out and they bought furniture, and there was a big boom in the economy for 15 years or so after 7 years of war and six or 7 years of the Depression. And I think we're going to be dealing with that once things get hopefully, they won't be back to normal, but as back to semi-normal. I'm optimistic that there will be a market, and these kids will have a lot of skill sets. I think the only equivalent in audio in our lifetime is when everything switched to digital in the late 80s. And I think a lot of the analog guys in the IATSE and at CBC and other places said, screw it, I'm not going to learn a whole new technology. I'm 61. I was going to retire in a couple of years anyway. I'm going to retire now and let the new guard come in and deal with this new technology. And I think you're going to see a lot of that over the next couple of years. There'll be a lot of guys between 58 and 65 taking early retirement, and there'll be openings for young people with knowledge of computer platforms and social media audio for social media skills. They will be valuable to pivot and sell music to that market.
When it comes down to your students, like right now, like even I'm still learning every day, doing something new with Zoom or Meets or distributing audio onto the internet, collaborating in real time with other people. Like right now, there aren't a lot of people who are specialized in it who are teaching this type of collaboration through the internet. Do you think that, soon there will be programs geared directly towards this type of collaboration? And what's that going to do?
I would like to see that. I was just speaking to a producer over the last few days about this Mayor's Gala, Mayor's Evening for the Arts, and we're going to end up with all these performances that we've recorded over the last few weeks, and he's going to be it is going to be airing from a situation where he's going to have 31 computers up at Solotech, and each computer is sort of being treated like a room, and the viewer can go to that room and watch that performance that's happening in that room, and then switch over to another performance. And I think the software that's driving that is he spent some time learning this new software. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but I think you're going to see some new ways of distributing entertainment in that fashion. And if I was a young person, if I was in my 20s, I would be learning about that stuff. Like he's basically able to switch this program from his house, like almost as if he was a switcher in a video truck, but can select what's going out there from there. So there's stuff out there, and I think it's just there are tools, some of which already existed and some of which have been developed. For example, in audio, some of the sports guys that are doing all this audience enhancement for arena events where there is no audience.
The sweeteners.
A good friend, Jeff Kozak, is doing that out in Edmonton. He was doing that hockey for NBC and NHL, and they were using Ableton and using audio samples from the NHL video games, the sample library that was developed for those video games, and using that to enhance the audience. And
that's amazing.
The first week was a little hedgy, but after that, I thought it was very seamless watching those baseball and hockey and basketball. I thought the audience thing didn't sound fake to me. It was very, very seamless once they got a rhythm for it. I thought it was very good, and it did enhance things. It was much better than the very early games that had no audience enhancement. It just sounded like they were playing in a funeral parlor.
And once they started having the live fans backgrounds being a part of the scene, it's like, oh, those are real people there. So they, of course, you and I both know it's not real. It would be just annoying to deal with mixing that 800 Zoom meetings simultaneously. But who knows? I
heard on one of the sports stations that in Germany, that's one of the soccer leagues, was doing a thing where you could, on your phone, for a price, like say $5, you could cheer for your team, and it would go into some server, and then you could control it from the remote control at home on your phone. And if your team scored a goal, you pressed a button, and it was your voice, with 50,000 other people cheering for your team.
That's amazing. I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about that.
The other team, I thought, wow, and of course, that's possible. You can do that, and then people really feel that they're involved. They're watching at home, but their voice is on the broadcast.
They're part of it. They're a part of it. Well, but speaking of part of it, the El Mocambo thing, it's come up a couple of times. It's come up so many times. The AES, we attempted to do a tour there, and I guess now that the launch has happened, it's an empty venue, and I've got a couple of pictures here. You provided me, and I brought them up. Could like that venue and that kind of lifestyle, and that live stream, like how important is the video and live component? How important is the synchronization in a venue? Speak to a little bit about what's going on in the El Mocambo. I know, is it a house gig for you? Are you the resident? What's going on there, Doug?
Yeah, we've basically got a house audio crew. Ken Friesen is doing front of house, and Ken, longtime front of house guy for Tom Cochran and Holly Cole, and touring front of house guy, and runs a studio out by Ottawa. A great front of house guy. Russ Wilson is doing monitors. He was the last 3 years he's been King Crimson's monitor guy, and before that he was Leonard Cohen's monitor guy for many years. And I have quite a history with the Elmo going back to the 80s, where I did 130 live radio broadcasts out of that venue for Q107 and CFNY and Chum back in the heyday, or just after the heyday of the Elmo. And so I have a great sentimental tie to that building, and it's 5 blocks from my house, so I can walk to the gig, basically. And so I got involved fairly early on when they were having meetings about how they were going to route cables and how they were going to do things. They did meet with some audio people in town, and myself and Michael Noonan and Howard Bagley, and we're quite familiar to our AES members, and getting some network input from Bell and that. And so the original plan for the Elmo was that it was going to be a bar that happened to have a recording studio built onto it. And over the past 3 years, that idea has morphed into basically now it's a television studio that happens to have a liquor license. And so it's a content factory. And they realize that the money in that place is outside the walls, is in broadcasts and simulcasts and webcasts and T-shirts and marketing and the image of the place. So it's pretty spectacular, Tony. The PA sounds incredible. The acoustics in the room are incredible. Best sounding bar I've recorded in, and I've recorded a lot of bars. We have an SSL L500 console up in the recording control room with ATC speakers. The console's 96 inputs. It's linked via MADI to the main stage, 64 inputs, and then they're now on the ground floor where the local bands play. That's up at 175 seat, 200 seat room. That's got a 32 channel digital front of house console and a MADI line running up to the control room, so we can record bands or webcast bands from down there. So we can actually ping pong between the two stages, and we did do that on Canada Day. We had July Talk playing upstairs and Cardinal Official playing downstairs, and we were able, just like an award show, we were able to ping pong back and forth. So while one band was on stage in one room, the other band was setting up, and then when they were finished, they could tear down, and we could do continuous entertainment on the two stages in the two rooms.
That's incredible.
There are floating floors, floating on rubber. The control room is floating, so we had a very, very loud metal band in there last month called Coney Hatch. I turned the speakers down in my room when the band was playing. I couldn't hear them playing out in the bar. The walls are that thick, and the isolation is that good. It's like a
bomb shelter. It's like a bomb shelter in there. Well, that's it.
Yeah, there's nothing in there. I mean, there's not a stick in there that was there from the old El Mocambo. All it really shares is the name and the address and the neon sign out front. But it's the level of tech in there is phenomenal. Every speaker is computer controlled. Every light is computer controlled. And so I think the bands are going to love playing there. Everybody in there so far has loved it. And the audience, and there's not a bad seat in the house. I mean, the room sounds great. And again, people are remembering the old El Mocambo, but you have to realize that it's no longer a 10-foot ceiling on the main floor. They dug out the ceiling on the main performance stage floor, and now there's about 26 feet above the stage, because it's a big C-shaped balcony, very much like the Jazz Bistro or the old Colonial Tavern. So rather than being a 275 seat room the way it used to be, it's now a 425 seat room counting the balcony.
Wow!
And the seats upstairs are great. A big line array system.
People are excited about it. And everybody's talking about it. And like it's the COVID thing really did throw a wrench into everybody's plans there. And you're not alone in it. It's good to see that you're still doing sessions there, and bands are still able to come by, and that's really good. That's really good.
Days over the next 9, the stage is poured cement so it doesn't resonate. Like, they thought of a lot of stuff. It took a long time to do the renovation, but it's because they didn't cut any corners.
Was
it felt like a recording studio more than a bar.
Jamie, right? It was Jamie.
Yes. Yeah.
Jamie. What was his? It was Jamie Howison.
Yeah.
So Jamie Howison, yeah, he is a genius.
All the power is really, really solidly thought out. It's pretty amazing in there, and so they're in a great position because of the ability to do webcasting, and they've got very high quality internet lines running out there, and some running directly to Bell up in Agincourt, so they can actually feed 12 cameras up there and mix cameras from up in Agincourt.
It's just glass. Well, you did you sent.
They can actually do it from there.
You sent me some pictures of a Gordon Lightfoot. You did a Gordon Lightfoot session. What is this Gordon Lightfoot session you sent me here?
Yeah, that was for Canada Day. We went to Gordon Lightfoot's house, and he played on his front porch up in Rosedale, a couple of songs, and it was wonderful. And he was so gracious and lovely. But again, we were all distance. Sheila O'Brien was directing. Terry Walker was doing video, the guy that does all the video at the Molson Amphitheater usually. He's the video guy at the Elmo as well. And then they hired me to do the audio. And I've recorded Gordon many times, but he was just lovely. And I sort of opened his front door and walked out and played 2 songs, and then walked back in, just him and his acoustic guitar. And as we were packing up, he came out and walked us down to the street. And it was...
That's amazing.
He was 82 years old, and it was very moving to see him perform and talk a little bit between the songs. And he was saying, well, he says, we'll be back when this thing is over. And he says, my band was rehearsing for a tour. We'll be back.
We'll be
I
back.
thought, geez, he can be back. Certainly everybody else could be back too.
Doug,
that was pretty good. That's up on. I mean, if you Google search Gordon Lightfoot candidate, you can see that performance. It's got something like 1 million views.
Amazing.
It was for Toronto.com. It was not, and CBC. It was on CBC. Candidate.
Doug, I want to be mindful of your time. I want to thank you very much for sticking in with us and sharing your insights and wealth of knowledge with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great. There's something I wanted to mention too. I wanted to thank. I've been nominated for awarded, I guess, an AES fellowship after being in the AES for 46 years, and I'm not sure who nominated me, but I received the notice of that in October, and it means an awful lot to me. It's appreciated that they weren't able to give the award this year because of the COVID, but hopefully next year I can go down to New York and
cheers, Doug. I believe that was spearheaded by our Vice Chair Ross Whitney, who's a former student of yours. And every person that we talk to, it's like, oh yeah, Doug McClement, he had something to do with my life in audio. My first gig in Toronto, it was related to Doug McClement, and then when I came to Toronto, you hooked me up with Neil Muncy, and everybody in Toronto, you're this spoke of people, and you deserve it more than anyone else, Doug. So
it means a lot to be recognized by my peers. I mean, I've been, like I say, a member of the organization for over 4 decades, and I've learned an awful lot and made an awful lot of friends through AES in Toronto, and it was humbling to get that award. I'm very pleased.
Thank you, Doug. We'll talk soon. You be well. Stay safe.
Great.
Until the next time.
Yeah,
ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for attending tonight's presentation from the TorontoAES.org. We unite audio engineers socially. Within our allied arts, we collate, collect, disseminate scientific knowledge that furthers all fields of audio engineering. The AES aims to empower people of all ages through participation in a healthy, safe, and open community presentation. Learn more about audio and engineering through events, presentations, networking, and membership. For more